You all ever have those days where like you just sleep and like you wake up, but you can't move your body, and then you're like half asleep for like 3 hours, and then you're tired.
Oh yeah, you just slept
Sometimes
like
too
shit.
much sleep. Sometimes too much sleep gets you tired. I find.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like it's there's that chemical in your brain that like the reason why you don't like run in your sleep when you're dreaming about running and stuff. It stop like it goes to your nerves and it stops you from like moving. Does that make do y'all know what I'm talking about? Have y'all ever heard about that? Like, dude, I'm telling
Yeah,
you, like
the poop nerve.
I don't know
Yeah.
what my body did last night, but I think I know what it is, guys.
You know?
It knew that I had to get up and play Overwatch 1, and it said, "Don't do it."
Okay, I'll go with that. I'll be right back. I can't even fucking blame you.
Your body was already pre-traumatized.
roll today. Oh god. Whew.
Get that? What was that called? That is a giant ass mug, Sam.
It's got water in it. Don't worry. It's all
got
water.
I was like,
It's
just
got
wondering
water.
what
It's
that
all
was in
water.
it.
I'm trying to hydrate, man. I had a lot of caffeine this morning too.
Stay hydrated.
Getting older and like trying to remember to drink water is like the hardest thing of like it's so easy to forget like, oh, I didn't drink water today. Let me go drink water. And I look back at my day, it's like, damn, I didn't drink any water today. I had all caffeine. I probably should go chug water. And then I chug water before I sleep and we're good to go.
You're not drinking water?
No, I am drinking water.
Oh.
Like I
Well, that's
got
one
this
good thing about
huge
being a
thing filled with
streamer.
water. Yeah.
The sip water. The sip
I drink
water
a crazy amount of water. It's not even funny.
I'm jealous,
Yeah, it's a
man. I gotta
vicious-
do that too.
It's a vicious cycle because you drink water, you gotta go pee. You drink water, you gotta go pee. Over and
I
over
have
and over.
this. I drink one of these every day. It's a 64 ounce. Then I have a 20 ounce coffee before I start. And I think today I had like a 26 ounce fucking lemonade, like caffeinated lemonade instead of another coffee because I know we do
Oh,
two coffees.
that'll do it right there. Good question though. How do you take your coffee?
Right now I like iced vanilla lattes with almond milk.
Dude, almond milk is so good.
It
Do you know
is.
almond milk technically is not milk.
Yes.
Well, obviously, yeah.
Well, yeah.
You can't milk an almond.
Well, you can try. All right, you can try. All right, challenge accepted. All right, challenge accepted. It's really good though. I don't know like what about it is so good, but I just love it. It's like coconut water too. I love
Wait,
coconut
here's
water.
the question though: sweetened or unsweetened?
What? Almond milk?
Depends.
Yeah.
If
I
it's
didn't know
just,
you could get it sweetened.
yeah, well, there's
Yeah.
the unsweetened, there's the sweetened, and then there's vanilla. And I think that
Vanilla's
unsweetened is good in like drinks. Like if you get like, you know what I mean? Like you get like coffee or something like that. Unsweetened's the way to go. But if you have like cereal, then you got to go either the vanilla or the sweetened. Otherwise, it's just like, it's kind of bland, you know?
Really? What cereal do you eat though? Because I eat like Crave, and that's got chocolate in it, so that the unsweetened does me.
I mean, I guess it depends. I never have like a go-to. Like there's like 10 good ones, you know what I mean? Like your Cinnamon Toast Crunches are good. Cheerios are good. I actually like Chex a lot too. Chex is pretty good. I used to like Frosted Flakes a lot, and then now they just like get stuck in my teeth half the time, and I get annoyed. I didn't have the problem
You
when
don't
I was
like
younger.
Frosted Flakes?
Frosted Flakes they're good, but I just don't like the 2 hours of annoyance after. You know what I mean?
That's what's the only thing that's more painful to eat that's god tier cereal than Frosted Flakes.
Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch, dude.
Captain Crunch
it's so
actually
good.
so good.
Oh god.
We don't get Captain Crunch here, I don't think.
You don't get Captain Crunch? Oh, that's
Not easily, nah.
Not easily. They're gonna have to pull some black
I think
market
you
stuff to get Captain Crunch.
Yeah, you gotta go to like the American sections of like certain stores and stuff.
Do y'all have American sections in the stores? Seriously?
Yeah, legit. There's like there's a big Tesco here which has like a world foods aisle, and there's a part of that has an American section. You get, like, Hershey
What's in the American
you get, like,
section?
Hershey bars.
What is in
you
the
get, like,
Wait, Hershey bars. Hershey's trash.
You get like the Reese's, is it
What?
called?
Wait, you don't think?
Reese's, yeah.
Okay, Reese's are good.
They're not trash, but they're not like
chocolate
they're not
bar?
god tier.
Like the chocolate,
bar? It's
No,
pretty good.
those
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
awful.
I mean, I don't eat them for fun, so I'll tip the hat on that one. But like, they're good with like if you put it like in certain like ice creams or something. Like, come on, like
Maybe, but I mean, like, listen, I had Somna set me a German like chocolate like milk chocolate caramel bar, and I will tell you, I literally cannot eat American chocolate anymore. It's not even close. It's like
Okay.
light
I can
years
adhere to that.
in between. Like what they know is chocolate and what we know is chocolate is so different, and theirs is a million times better.
It's just German engineering. I don't know what kind of schematic they have on that chocolate bar, but they must have nailed it, right? I need some Willy Wonka. It's like my favorite movie as a kid.
Oh, that's a throwback.
All right, well, I'm just gonna sort out the overlays and then we'll go. Yo, what up, Freedo?
Hi. What's up, Uncle Freedo?
You've joined the black. Yeah, you joined the Overwatch map backgrounds.
Oh, let's go. Hey, SVB and Flats, y'all are slacking. Where's your Overwatch map background?
Dude, this is my bedroom.
Need a green screen to start with.
This is my bedroom too. Look, if I knock this, there's been a couple times where I've had a tough game and like just lean back and you just see my whole bed and everything, clean laundry, everything. It's just like, it's
aesthetic. I got the towel. I got another towel. I got a mirror. It's you know what? Whenever I get a G Fuel or like a Monster or Game Fuel,
lemonade.
Guess what? Give me a fridge. It'll go right there, and I'll move the thing over a little bit. You get a free fridge in the background. I already got the ad placement.
Yeah. Okay. You know what?
It's in the deck.
Well played. Touche.
Working smart.
Res meetings for the fresh too.
All right, we good?
Dude.
All right, then. Welcome everybody to the next episode of the Group Up Podcast. We're here for the Great May Debate. So, it's only halfway in, but there's already a lot happened, which is unusual to say in the Overwatch world. That is, a lot has been happening, but a lot has been happening. We had a beta. We don't have a beta. The beta was boring? Overwatch 1.1, Activision's diversity tool announcement about the announcement of the next future Overwatch 2. So, a lot to discuss, and I'm here with the usual, the Avengers. Samito, what up?
Good. I almost said morning, but morning somewhere. All right. Afternoon. Good day. Good nights. Good life to everybody out there. Hello.
Good life. Freedo, what up? Back in an Overwatch map now.
Yes, I wanted to be back in Overwatch 2 so badly. I transported myself via green screen back into the game.
Nice.
I tried going back to Overwatch 1. It was painful.
Well, a man who has been enjoying Overwatch 1, or at least to some degree, is my final guest, Flats. Flats, what up?
Hello. Surprising enough, at least for the first 2 days, it's going to fade fast. It's already fading.
It's going to fade fast. It's going to fade fast indeed. And that is, I think, the place where we'll start first. Reflections on the first beta. We already had a bit of a diversity of opinion, I think, judging from just that initial greeting, which is that Freedo missing it super badly, can't tolerate Overwatch 1 anymore. Flats, you on the other hand made a tweet, I think it was yesterday, day before, where you said you're actually looking forward to going back to Overwatch 1 because you've gotten so bored of the beta of Overwatch 2. So I want to start with you. Elaborate. What has been your feelings overall on the first beta and why were you so bored?
So let me preface this and say maybe I'm a little bit biased because I'm a very goal-oriented person, right? Whether it's in competitive games or in content, I do a lot of, and not to like toot my own horn, I do a lot of work, like every day, there's a reason why I have the infinity gauntlet of like 6 editors at this point, running dailies on 2 channels, actually triple dailies now, because now I'm doing clips, which by the way, we got to talk about that off stream sometime and teach and talk about the secrets behind clips, I think.
Sure.
But I do a lot of stuff and I get really bored if I can't set goals for myself. And I had 2 major strifes with the beta. One, I knew it wasn't going to have ranked and I understood that, you know what I mean? Like going in, I was like, okay, I get it. Not having ranked makes sense. You can't really be like that mad. Once we got into the 1 or 2 weeks though, and it's been out for a while, it was kind of like, well, we have the tools to add like something like open queue. Why can't we add comp? Like that doesn't make sense because the MMR rating is already hidden behind in quick play, right? Like they were already using quick play MMR, which is basically it takes your regular MMR of your account on Overwatch 1 and it groups you in like one of a few categories. So like, you're not facing silver players as a GM player. Like the worst she'll play is like plats. You know what I mean? Like at worst, like high plat. So the system was there and we didn't get it. So where the bias might come in is one, I'm more of a competitive person. I want to play games that are more competitive. It felt like I was either getting stomped by like 2 or 3 Overwatch League players, and I had like a plat support or 2 plat supports that were just dead on cooldown and they weren't having a good time. They just kept leaving. Or we were just stomping them, which isn't fun. And to go one step further with that, in content, I was struggling a lot because a big part of my focus in content is YouTube and understanding the dynamic between Twitch and YouTube, and understanding that, you know, in today's day and age, unless you're at the top of the chart all the time in streaming and, you know, like you're top of the directory, it's kind of tough to grow as a Twitch streamer. And I found a lot of success using YouTube for that, and that's why I've put a pretty heavy emphasis on that. I make 3 different types of content. I make casual content, which is like spectating, etc., which I couldn't really do in the beta. I make stream recaps, which are basically, you know, take the whole stream, edit it up into little pieces and like the best moments of the whole stream. It's more like more memey, a little bit more like high action. And then my bread and butter, which is the middle between those two, is competitive ranked, right? Like you have a ranked game where, you know, let's say like we had a game today where like I have Samito on my team, played against Jay. You know, it's like, you know what I mean? Like high level game. There's multiple names everybody recognizes. That it's a bread and butter 25K, 30K views video, easy clap. Everyone had fun, you know, memes. There's comms, which is not always normal in Overwatch 1. But in Overwatch 2, the games are too short. It doesn't fit. You can't even do an 8-minute video. The game modes are too short. Like, unless you got a really competitive control points that like went all the way and everyone was having fun and like calming, like you just couldn't get it. And I've noticed not only my stream content, but my YouTube content, there was a drastic drop because you have not only consoles isolated. Console doesn't really watch much Overwatch 2 content because they can't play it. They're not really that interested in it after the first few days. And 2, I lost you lose the competitive community as well because they're not interested in watching quick play where you're just either getting stomped on or stomping. And that affected me as a creator and also as a player. I was falling asleep at the keyboard sometimes. I'm sorry. Like when I hit the 3 or 4 hour mark, I was looking over, I was like, wow, I've been live for 3 hours already. And I hated that feeling. I really did. But it was true.
So yeah, a lot of points there to kind of address this, your feelings, personal feelings of boredom, but also viewership. And I think that's where I'll lead Freedo towards. Freedo, how did you feel personally? And what was your kind of assessment of how viewers are responding to the Overwatch 2 beta?
Well, they can't do much with anything because there is no, for the reasons Flat said, there's no competitive structure to the game. Most people are jumping in Overwatch 2's beta just to try out the new things. And once they see it, I think they're kind of done with it. So there just kind of isn't a reason to keep watching. Like, I think, especially when you know so many things could change. Like, if I'm watching Flat stream and I'm like, well, how does he deal with these situations? How do I improve as a player? No one really knows what the rules are or like what structure we're going to have or what ranked mode's going to be. So it's very much just the novelty factor of the new stuff. And that is the weakest part of Overwatch 2. Like, the best part, I think, is the balance and the flow and sort of the philosophy. But the things that will get everyone else excited is the long-term content plan, which we just got an announcement about. That will be a month away. We'll know the plan in a month. Yeah. So now we get to sit and ruminate and think about what could be, but there's not much for the now. So I could definitely understand if you want to play ranked. Like,
you're just going a bit robo there, Freedo. You've gone a bit robotic there. Is that for me or everyone else?
I heard it too.
I heard it 3.
Connection issue. Hello, am I better?
No.
I kind of like it. He's coming in from the future. He's playing Overwatch 2. Look at him right now. Keep talking.
They're disconnecting him because he's about to talk about the future. He's like, so they announced the plans. I've only got a moment. If you're using like a sound thing, you just try restarting it. Like, because when I use my virtual one, sometimes it gets robo.
All right, we'll test it and then come back. Okay.
Okay.
Still
yeah.
robot?
Yeah. Okay. So still robot.
Yeah.
Okay, go on without me for now.
Okay, yeah, just you mess around.
That
while
sounds
I head to
so
Samito.
sad with the influx. It sounds like, go on without me.
I know. Oh, go on without me. Don't leave me.
It's like I'm living Interstellar right now. Great movie.
So Sam, I mean, what's your POV been? Because Freedo alluding to the good point there, which is that, you know, for the casual normal player, they're coming for the new stuff, the fun new toys they can play with. It was fun for like 3 days, and then the toys kind of got old, and that was it. Is that what your sentiment has been?
There was no purpose. Right? Like, competitive. See, this is the biggest misconception. I'm not gonna lie. Like, when I saw takes like, it's just a beta, it shouldn't have comp. I wanted to headbutt a wall, like, because it's just like, listen, you're missing the whole point, because you could apply that argument anywhere. You could say, oh well, the competitive seasons, they only last for a certain time frame, so there's no point. Like, why play, right? You know, well, we're all gonna die one day. Why should we enjoy life? You know,
That's a little
it's not
extreme, but
I
Yeah,
know.
okay, we
I'm just
went
trying to
there.
make
All right.
analogies. Like, you know, I want to lay the spectrum down, you know, but like, in my opinion, like, I feel like grinding like an environment like that gives you purpose, right? And you can apply that to any different section of life, and that's what makes it beautiful. That makes it worth your time, right? Because again, I've talked about it on this podcast more than anything. Like, the most valuable thing to a consumer is their time, right? So, you know, when you just have it be quick play, there's no incentive to grind. And like, first of all, let me debunk two things that Flat's kind of talked about as well. Competitive was absolutely doable. At least the competitive format was absolutely doable. We have an existing system in Overwatch 1. I think in hindsight, clearly not having competitive in the beta was a blunder.
and we saw we could bring it over. Like, they did it.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
like if they launched it as like, oh, we didn't think we needed it. Okay, it happened. What a big deal. But it could be added and it didn't.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and just the rule set, as Sam is saying, right? Like, you can go. We played those custom games. All I have to do is select the preset that says competitive, and now it's going to go both
were
ways.
there.
So there's no reason it couldn't have been done.
Mm-hmm.
It was a deliberate choice. Carry on, Sam.
Yeah. And, you know, it's just, I want to give him credit, because the biggest issue, I think, in Overwatch 1 was that the gameplay just is not fun. like I played some Overwatch 1 last night. Y'all saw me in the chat, like, practicing, because I have trials, right? And like, obviously, like, dive meta is meta in Overwatch 2. So like, you know, they want me like playing Genji, and I want to make sure my Genji is like much better than it was. I'm starting to practice, right? And then I just play against Brig, and I was just like, this is like so much worse in this game than Overwatch 2. They made Overwatch 2's core gameplay and the game flow so much better. And like, it was really great to see. I think that's why so many of us, after playing the alpha, were like, yo, like, this is good. Like, this, like, it seems like the game flow feels better, right? So I'll give you the thumbs up on that one. But then when we intentionally choose to not give the game the format that it needs to have long-term playability, you see the results, right? Streamers getting less viewership, right? After we've already been starved for multiple years, right? Player base like way down over time, and the beta, I don't want to say it flopped, because I think that Blizzard's leadership's intention with this beta, I think it accomplished their goal for what they wanted it to. But again, this kind of comes back to our point that we've talked about a little bit on this podcast, that they don't really understand their consumer or the position that they're in. Because you like, I don't care about a stress test. Your consumer doesn't care about a stress test. The reality is that version of the game, my guess is, could be open to the public as we speak. It's playable, clearly. It has a competitive format, clearly. Why are we going back to Overwatch 1? Because now what you've done is you've put your game in another year or two of limbo. And I think, as we're going to see over time, I have a feeling this next season of Overwatch is going to be even more of a graveyard season than the previous one. And it's as though we have not learned what it is our consumer is after and how to deliver it. Because the reality is, let's not beat around the bush. They could do it if they wanted to right now. There could be Overwatch 2 beta live right now. I would prefer the game to be in a permanent beta state than this back and forth pointless limbo that the second that they, and I don't know, I'm not sure if they realize this yet, but the second that beta came out, the Band-Aid was ripped off. Overwatch 1 lost all of its purpose, and we are forward looking 100% to Overwatch 2. So, you know, I think I personally enjoyed the beta, but I really wish that we put the existing features that have existed in Overwatch since its conception of season 1 or 2, really season 2 with this current SR system, for 33 seasons of functional competitive mode. I think it was an enormous blunder to not have that in the beta. And I think that the beta is falling off as fast as it did. It kind of proves that statement.
Okay, here's a quick check. Freedo, you back?
Yeah, I was just trying to click on my
Hey.
webcam. I do have rebuttals to these points, which I would like
You're
to
sounding
get to
good.
if possible.
So
Yeah, I think
your
it was
video
the virtual
isn't
cam,
there, but
unfortunately.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Go
click it
ahead.
on in a sec. So we'll just listen to
Actually,
the
sorry,
gray
one thing I want to
box.
quickly mention. One quickly thing I want to mention. This is a little bit memey, but we actually created a little group up bingo card last time when my chat had some downtime, and someone has just hit one of their markers, which is Samito talking about bricks. So if you want to participate,
That's not
bingo. Exclamation mark bingo is one of the things in my chat. So, anyways, carry on, Freedo. We'll see if we hit the full bingo.
I think you got to think of it from the Blizzard's point of view and where we're operating from, which is everything is a compromise at this point. None of this, the way it's rolling out, is ideal. And what the devs don't want to do is give the illusion that it's in any way finished or complete or has competitive integrity, for example. So that's the reason why I wouldn't have ever expected a ranked mode in that beta. And it's already over. I mean, it's down now. So yeah, you could have had ranked for a few days, yes. But they already probably were struggling to make balanced matches as it was. And a big percentage of players, like I said at the start, were just trying to look at the new things. So knowing that bit of the player base, they don't really want to have such an unbalanced version of the game. Like, I think they needed the data to know how they were going to balance it at all and what goals they have to attack. And I think it's reasonable to expect it maybe in the second one if it's going to last a bit longer, but only being a few weeks. Like, the Overwatch seasons are months long. So ideally, yeah, we have everything. I mean, like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, I don't want all the things we should have. But you got to remember that this, I think, started about a year ago. Like, the things we have for PvP that we've seen are about a year of work. And under that context, that's why I'm so optimistic, because I think people from the general gaming sphere, they look at it and say, you've had years to do this. Why is it only this? But from my perspective, it's like, I am pretty sure they did an almost entire reset on some of these ideas where they were going down one philosophy. And we've talked about this on the podcast so many times, but about a year ago, they were maybe even still on the Overwatch 2 has to be everything all inclusive together train, which might take 10 years. and now we're on the road of we're always going to be a little bit behind what we would have liked to have. So the devs have to play the impossible game of figuring out, all right, what's the most important thing we should focus on for each step of the way, for beta 1, beta 2, beta 3. Like, there's going to be multiple betas, and we have to ramp up to the crawl, walk, and run of it all just to get anything. Remembering, of course, the big concession was that Overwatch League demanded to have new stuff to play on the new season when it needed to start. And I think it was already delayed, if I recall, or something like that. Regardless, most of this is so that Owl could have new maps and heroes or reworks and a new game, an esport game to play. That was step one. Okay. So the devs rushed to that. And now they're trying to, like, well, how do we balance Orisa, or how do we even, like, it's so obvious. There's so many things they're not going to say. But one thing that seems so blatantly obvious is, well, we wanted to fix the tank role first, and then we're going to eventually figure out how do supports feel good later. Like, and we almost saw that happen in real time, right? Where they're like, Zen gets the kick. Okay, he gets to boop things away. Like it's like, how's that feel? Kind of good, kind of bad, whatever. Like, they need to get the data for these things, basically is what I'm saying. And we should expect it to feel as haphazard, painful, and short-term, and lacking things we want for the next year, I'd say. That's just normal now. All right, that's my little rant on that. Yeah, I want all the same things, but the our expectations are going to have to shift to the map we're on. Luckily, with this roadmap that we'll get in a month, we won't be sitting here waiting and wondering when everything's going to fall, which I think is part of it, right? Like, I like, everyone's got different expectations. That I think Blizzard, ahead of what you guys are saying as streamers, content creators, top level players, competitive diehards, they more so care, I think they should more so care about the donkeys of the world who are confused on what this game even is and why we think it's good. They need to fix that messaging first, because we'll have a dead game long term. And a week of tour rank that's not fixing that problem. Like, they got to figure out, how do we change the perception that we have a new dead role in the game that nobody wants to play with support. Like, that is step one. Like, they fixed tank, and now they want to make support's interesting, which that's why I think we're going to get a new support hero and hopefully a lot more features. And as me and SV, the bingo card is probably going to hit at some point. new features is what I've always wanted, and I think SV as well. Like that's like top of my list. So that's when I'll be happy. But anyway,
Yeah.
the
And-
devs
go
didn't
ahead.
intend you to keep playing the beta for more than a couple days. I think I would imagine. Like, so go ahead.
And this is, no, I was gonna say that, just feeding back off your point. This is the interesting thing about it, is that in a way the devs will say we've actually been pretty clear about what we intended the beta to be, because we know both privately and publicly they've kind of been emphasizing it's a closed beta, it's a limited beta, it's not meant for everybody to play. And this is where I suppose the contradiction exists, is that the devs have wanted one thing, which is it's kind of like two people are getting married and one person wants a huge wedding and one person wants a really small intimate wedding. The devs are like, we just want a small intimate wedding with our 10 close friends, and the other partner is like, we want millions of people playing this at once, and we are the other partner in this case. And it feels like those expectations from us have partly been out of our own desires, but also just, I guess, market expectation, right? Which is that when you hear Overwatch 2 beta, we're used to like the Valorant beta, we're used to thinking this is a roughly ready product, or we're used to just other competitors putting something out that was resembled its final product. With Overwatch 2 in this beta, it isn't there. Yo, we got the Freedo back, nice. It isn't anywhere near the final product, and it's kind of like, for me personally, it feels like that conflicting between short term and long term. I put a video out where I was kind of said that after playing this beta, I'm convinced Overwatch 2 will be a success, and I still stand by that. The problem is that when you're playing Overwatch 2 and it gets boring, right? As a person, as a content creator, it's that short term knowing that it's going to suck, or knowing that it's going to feel incomplete, or just a much smaller version of what it could be, versus I'm still pretty confident that they're going to make so many right moves, because like Freedo said, they've made so many right moves. They're making so many right noises. But the truth, as Freedo said, comes down to those the donkeys of the world, which is where my next topic will lead us to, which is that unfortunately a lot of people have looked at it as Overwatch 1.1, and that messaging, I don't know what Blizzard were hoping the casual audience would take away from it, but certainly it can't have been what it was received as, which is the Overwatch 1.1 label. So how do we feel like casuals will respond to what we've seen and what we will get? Like, do you think that they'll be able to come back later and they'll forget about this initial first beta as just 1.1 when we get new stuff? Or do you think it's like a damaging, PR move? Flats, I'm gonna take it to you first.
I think honestly they're kind of fooling themselves a little bit with that. How do I put this as nicely as possible?
Don't.
Come
on.
I mean, like, I think that the scope here that they had, right, was they wanted to keep it as small as possible, right? Like, I mean, the drops were only a single day, right? But it was 1.5 million people watching. Games don't really go much higher on Twitch than 1.5 million at any point, right? No matter what is happening. So yes, of course, like that to them that might be a small number. They may be like, oh, like that was much smaller. We're looking at 20 million people. You think 20 million people are legitimately going to sign up for Overwatch 2 after what people have seen? The amount of like people in gaming talk, right? Or they at least notice other things. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've noticed like weird stuff happening in like Apex or Valorant, or I don't know, even CS. You know what I mean? Like, if the CS scene is like really being like annoyed by something, like something is triggering them, other games hear it. Like, it travels. So to kind of hear that the Overwatch community was getting loud, which it was, and it was getting loud and going, hey, this good thing's coming, it's gonna be great, and then it hit and everything went dark, is a really, really bad sign. I almost want to say, like, it's not that I don't have faith, but it's like, I think it was a little bit of a misplay. Because I think kind of like the idea is in like products, right? And product management and product development, right? Like, when you show someone like an early adaptation of something, right? Like, you don't always show them everything, right? Like, for like the rule is like the 50-80 rule, right? Is like if you have 80% of the product done, you show 50% of it so that they give you feedback, and they might give you feedback of stuff you've already done, right? And you're like, okay, so we're on the right track. Like, Well, you have that, and you're further down the line already. It's basically a way to like gauge what is coming, and so by the next time they have another test, it looks like all this progress has been made, right? And I think that's what's going to happen with beta 2 is it's going to look like a totally big jump that all this magic stuff has already happened. But I think they already kind of had it. You know what I mean? Like they had some of this stuff already like ready, and this data that they were looking for is either going to confirm or deny what their hypotheses were going in. Now, I think they probably made a right guess about tank. I think they probably made a right guess about DPS. I think they got rattled a little bit by support. I think they were rattled by the data because from what I read, it seemed like that was like 15% more supports dying in GM, but everyone else like Diamond above, but everybody else was like normal. I don't like. Maybe they just didn't understand the scope of like that high level play. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why like they had this knee jerk reaction, and plus like trying to like let the community know like, oh, like we're listening, like we want to make support better. So I would be a little bit worried for the support role. Like, I think that what's going to happen is going to be either hyper buffing stuff, which they kind of started to. It's just concerning as shit. But like putting balance stuff aside for a sec, going back to like the actual game itself, I think we just put ourselves into the apex position. I don't think it's going to be a major boom position again. I don't think it's going to be possible unless they shell out hundreds or millions of dollars. Hundreds of like I'm talking like a crazy amount. Like they do like 2016 Overwatch where there's like Overwatch cars driving down the strip in LA and they got like movie premiere commercials and every YouTube video you click on and every Twitter video, and they open the marketing budget for like this crazy amount of stuff. I don't think it happens. I think we go into the Apex route where we are back down at the bottom of the hill, and there's going to need to be this slow increase again, where it might have like a little bump when it comes out, then it will drop right off again, and then it will slowly, as the game gets better and gets good, and people realize that it's good, it will come back. But I think it was a major misplay with that original bump to not have a little bit more, because I think they intentionally did keep some stuff. I'm like 80% on that. I'm pretty confident that they had other stuff ready, but they didn't want to give it to us because they're not ready to. And
you feel like it was like a one-shot opportunity to have this beta drop day.
Yeah, I think that like I don't think they wanted this beta to be as big as it was. I don't think that was the intention. I thought that I think they wanted to try to keep it small, and they were trying to cater to everybody. Like I feel somewhat personal, and maybe this is just me, but I feel somewhat personally responsible for this mess. Like, and maybe it's just my own little thing, but it's like I feel like maybe the way that they got the drops, or like Twitch drops, was probably because a lot of us were complaining and talking about content not being good and viewership going down. And I think they try to do us a solid and give us drops and try to help everybody out and do well. And it kind of created a little bit of a mess. And that's that, I know that's a little bit out of left field, but that's how I personally feel a little bit.
Samito's got something on his mind.
Hold on a second. Flats. First of all, it's very kind of you to think that. But that's it's kind. It really is. Like, but let's be clear here. This is a Fortune 500 company we are talking about. Them catching up with industry standard is in no way, shape, or form the accountability of their content creators, who they, by their own business model, chose to let rot for 2 years. Right. And again, I'm not trying to throw shade on them and saying that, and we're all past it, right? We're forward looking on this podcast, which is why I love coming on here, and it's always a pleasure, right? In no way, shape, or form is that your responsibility. But I will say, to chime in a little bit, I think you're completely right. I think that the first impression and the big boom of this game, and this kind of ties back to a big concern that I've had over the years, is that I don't think they quite understand. They're better now. Absolutely, they're better now. It's improvement, right? But going from an F to a C is not like where you want to be realistically, right? Like, I think the drops were good. I think a lot of stuff was good, but this was a great prime opportunity to knock people's socks off. And I think they actually had the tools to do it. I think that if competitive was in that beta, honestly, and they like tried to make it a little bit more well-rounded, like, it would have been phenomenal. And it was good. The gameplay was good. But again, the notion that I personally think that the notion that we needed this beta to be smaller is fundamentally flawed and does not understand the position they are in compared to the rest of the industry. And I think they had the wrong approach, and they're learning over time. Like Freedo said, and I agree with SVB, I'm bullish long term, especially with the Flats. You want to talk budget? If this Microsoft deal comes through, that's budget right there, right? You know, I think Microsoft would go wild, I hope, right? But I think that, Flats, I think it's silly for you to blame yourself. That is absolutely not on you. They've needed to be doing stuff like this forever. But I think that they don't understand that they are not the most important piece of the puzzle. The consumer and the consumer's needs is the most important piece of the puzzle as a business. So whether you might want it to be small, Blizzard, but the reality is the consumer and the IP needed to be open, and they needed to be big to get back on the apex path, like you talked about, steady growth over time. And I think we kind of missed in terms of what that beta should have been going forward. But yeah.
So what would you have done, Sam? Like, would you have kind of put out more? So if Flats is saying, let's say they had 80 and they're showing 50, would you have pushed for that extra 30? What would you have done?
I'll tell you what I would have done. We should have been at 50. We weren't even at 50%. We were at 30% because it was only quick play. like to me, what brings people back is that competitive is great for long-term playability, right? You would see way less of a drop off in terms of at least Twitch viewership and player ability if competitive was in the game. 2, this never should have been a closed beta. It shouldn't have been a closed beta. The rest of the entire industry, and it has changed. This industry has fundamentally changed since Fortnite came out. And even then, Fortnite changed the entire world's business model, right? Having your store not have a paywall and be open to everyone is one of the biggest assets in modern day business. And for some reason, when we have not put out content in 2 years, and again, this is like kind of like, you know, they come out and they say, okay, we're jumping out of the grave here. Like, we're not going to be in a content graveyard. We're not doing all this. But then we close off the beta? Like, if I was principal for a day, right? We're going back to elementary school here, folks. If I was principal for a day, right? Let's open we have nothing left to lose. We've already hit rock bottom, right? Every single consumer we get in our door is a win. That's more data for us, right? More people talking about our game. And if we're going to take the Apex approach, there's no reason to ever take the beta down. Let it run. We'll make changes as we go, and we'll get it done over time, right? But like, we just missed the mark. Like Blizzard, I know that they want it to be closed, but it's not about what you want. It's about reading the consumer and reading the industry. And when your competitors are all open door, hey, come on in, we'll show you what we got. You can't have a closed door, I don't think. And I think because that door was closed, because we didn't give it the features that already exist in Overwatch 1, we did miss our the big bang was now. And I think we did miss that a little bit. Is it game over? No. But, you know, I think that was a little bit of a miss. We're not quite there yet, but we are getting there, which is good.
I think we should bookmark these points. And rather than long-windedly respond to you guys, I think instead I want to like time capsule the things that are said here and then bring it up again maybe when the actual release of Overwatch 2 is, because I agree with a lot of your guys' assessments, but your conclusions I don't agree with. I think the big point is when PvE comes out and the whole game is released. They want to win then. So yes, some of this feels like ripping a Band-Aid off and it's painful and we want more of it in now, but it's strange to me that Flats very well explains the 50-80 rule and then says they shouldn't do that. Well, why is it a rule then if they shouldn't do it? Like they feel like they have to do it, because why would they show 80% and still get a meh reaction? The thing that I don't think you guys are realizing is anything they could have put in the beta was going to get a meh. And you're asking and begging and pleading for a little less of a meh because you're dreaming up what it could be. The truth is we don't really know how much is done. So while I kind of agree that there probably is maybe another 30% gap that they could have done and maybe more things, I always think they're holding back. But again, to my first point, is it's always going to be a compromise. So I think the modern consumer actually is quite fickle and quite like short term in their thinking. And it is common to see a game like Apex, we keep bringing it up, it did explode on Twitch and then kind of died for a while and then came back when, things are actually better. I think Overwatch can take that same exact path. A different game, Valorant, I think a lot of people compare this to, didn't actually have as much content in it. Valorant at the beta release had less content numerically than Overwatch 2's beta in terms of overall maps and things. This is Avril's point that he brought up on his podcast, which I'm a fan of. And that's something that I think we should say more often and realize that, like, in terms of number of things. Now, it doesn't, the reason why Valorant had a much better reception is because it was a new game, you know, Counter-Strike with abilities, but it was a new game for people to try. And in that community as well, it took a while for them to get ranked, and everyone was saying, we want rank, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think what I want to try to do on the show is make sure that the messaging of our feedback fits in line with what Blizzard actually knows. Like, I think a lot of times it's easy for us to get upset as if Blizzard doesn't know these things, and I think they do. Like, they want to give us certain things, but they're playing the game for that long-term impact for when Overwatch 2 releases proper. Like, I don't like the marketing of it the most. Like, that's what I think is one of our biggest hurdles right now, because what I wanted it to be called is Overwatch 2.0, right? Much different than the sequel, because the sequel implies all those other things you've said for the past few years. We've got all these other plans. So it's like, and now here it is, the beta version of it. Yeah, it does feel like 1.1 or 1.3 or whatever you want to call it, because all that other stuff isn't even in our hands yet. So until we get all that, we won't really get the 2. But I wish they did a relaunch, the PvP. Like, if they just branded that differently, I think the expectations might be different. That's my biggest issue so far, because there's a lot of players that I think might grow to be more competitive in this game, but I think that there isn't as many. Like, when you see 1.5 million watching Overwatch, a big percentage of them are not competitive gamers. Like, a lot of people, you got to remember this. The competitive scene of Overwatch is like a subset. It's not like Valorant, where it's a majority of the player base. They play the most in Overwatch. We've seen these stats. They play the most Overwatch of anyone, but it isn't the overall community. The overall community is the tune in when they have new things, guys, which is like, I don't know if you guys saw this. Overwatch 1 had a queue to get in for the remix event the other day. This was on Reddit. It happened to me as well. Logging in, there's 1,000 people ahead of me to log in for remix skins, for a skin recolor. Some of them are actually pretty good. But this is what I mean. Like, this is the community we actually have, which is, what's the new thing that you have? And that is the Doomfist Orisa, that stuff. And that kind of ran its course. So anyway, that's my thought process. I'm sure you guys feel differently, but I think to some degree, we're not going to solve it in this call, right? So at some point, I think we should move on to things we can more tangibly have interesting disagreements about. Like, I know you guys don't like the support changes. That's another one that got brought up. I think they did a decent job balancing supports. I'm more pro the changes. I know Sam and Flats kind of hate them from reading your Twitter feeds.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to elaborate on that.
Yeah,
like,
we'll get.
My position is, given where they are, I think they're making the best plays they can make. Do I want things to be 5 times better? Yes. But knowing what they have at their disposal, I don't actually know if we're even proving the point that, like, they needed to have everything that, well, they don't have it, is the point. They don't have it. And it's not going to be for a while. And based on the reaction, like, okay, let me give you like another little side rant. I did a review of the game, of the alpha, and I'm like, wow, this is like everything I ever asked for. A lot of things in this call, it's as if the changes, they went down the bingo card and we're like, well, let's, Sam brought up Brig. Well, Brig doesn't have a stun. I don't like not being able to move. Well, now you can move all the time. And I want it to be more of a dynamic game, and the Seagull downfall of Overwatch. It's like they went through all the things we asked for. Well, they focused on that. That's what we got now. But to my surprise, despite loving it myself, overall, the mainstream gamer is kind of like, it's the same game. It's the same game. The XQC clip. It's just the same game. Like Overwatch 1.1. So that's where I think the focus should be. I was very surprised that it was as negative as it was. And ultimately, they need the content that brings the casuals in. That's the type of community I think we have above all else. And that is done better, I think, by giving Zen more health and a wacky ability. Like that's more in line with what people want, I think, than some of these other things that we've been
I think
nitpicking about.
I kind of disagree on that part. I think that the part that brings them in is the more skins, the more sprays, the more emotes, the more characters, the more content. I mean, you said it yourself. That's what the casuals want. Now, I think that queue the other day was mostly because everyone was leaving the beta and going back in Overwatch 1, plus people coming in for it. Plus, I think they were having server issues anyway because people that were in were getting kicked out, which normally if there's a queue, they just stay in. So I think it was more server issues from what I saw. But I mean, Reddit's excited that, there's a queue. It was like first time in like 3.5 fucking years at this point. So W there, I guess. But I hear you on like they are like they did balance changes quite often, right? It was a good thing, right? They were trying to make support more fun. I think that's a good thing. But I think we still have this fundamental misunderstanding of how the game works, in that they sometimes misunderstand that if you change something with a support hero, it changes the whole game. It's the same thing they think with tank heroes as well. As you change a tank thing, the whole game changes. Now, the knee-jerk reaction was that maybe BAP didn't feel as good or as impactful because all of a sudden, you don't have 2 tanks to heal, so the AoE is not as good. So they change his shift, but all of a sudden his shift is a second immortality field in some ways. Like, I think I have a clip somewhere.
Sorry, Flat. Sorry to quickly interrupt. I just want to say, I want us to have a proper lengthy discussion on the support changes. So let's segment that, and I want you to feedback on the other stuff first. Maybe if you kind of want to rebut anything that Freedo said about the bigger picture of reacting to the beta, the reception, if there's anything they could have done better, and then we'll have a proper discussion on the support changes.
I mean, like on what thing, like specifically, like any of them, just like they could have done better. I thought it was just a response to ours.
Freedo mentioned that, because obviously Sam and Flats largely on the POV that we kind of missed an opportunity here with the first beta, and we kind of made this big hype only for there to be nothing. Whereas Freedo's saying he doesn't really feel that's necessarily the case. So do you have any rebuttal to that? And then we'll talk about the support changes.
I mean, there's nothing we can do about it now. We agreed it's the apex approach, that we had the big up and now we're down, and it's gonna slowly climb back up. I don't think that there's another big boom unless all of a sudden the game looks completely different. Because the big change is Overwatch fundamentally feels different, but to your donkeys, no, it doesn't. That's why the XQC reacts to Donkey's video. Is XQC himself actually said, no, the game actually is very different in how it plays. So yeah, there's clips of him saying it's the same game, but like, at the same time though, when he kicks into like Overwatch mode, you can see it. Like he's like, no, I mean, like the game does play very differently, but it looks the same because the same characters playing the same way. So like the casual players don't experience that same way. Like it's the reason why Junkrat's still real strong and Moira's strong. And I don't disagree. We had to somehow fix that as well, but I don't think that those support changes are going to help that. The casual players want content, and content saves all this. Like if you want to have those casual players, which is their majority of players, like I don't disagree on that. It's content. That's it. There is no other answer.
There is one. I will say this real quick though, Freedo. I agree with you, except I think I agree that that's the approach we're taking. Except I will say that competitive is not the 50-80. It is like 10. It's like the 10%. Like the competitive mode that we have existed, like that's already been out in the game. People know it. I feel like it was a miss to do. Like that's not new content. Like their new rank system, whatever they're doing. Yeah. But we'll talk about it later. There's no point.
Well, just one way to clarify this. So it isn't that I don't want competitive because I like playing as well. But from their point of view, you got to think of the no-win situation they're in. The more things that are in the beta that are just the same from Overwatch 1, the more it is just an update. So controlling the message here for them is a nightmare because they do, and they said later that there's a competitive overhaul, which I'm doing backflips over. But why are we not talking about that? Why are we like, well I wanted the old ranked mode that we hated. I wanted the old ranked mode we all hated. Listen. I don't hate the old ranked. I think the ranked formatting itself is good minus the group queue. But again, this is kind of like I don't want to go too off topic here. We can talk about this in like some other section, but and overall, I do think the beta was like good. Like they fixed the biggest problem of the game, which was the gameplay, which turns out to a game is very, very important. But also,
having big streamers come consistently play your game, which is why I do think competitive would have been important because I think we would have seen like more streamers playing the game more. That also is a huge driving factor in how popular a game can get. And if you look at Among Us, I think that's like one of the games that kind of proved that, where that game had been out for 3 years with no new content. So you're right, new content is huge.
All right, hold up.
Are we gonna cover
Let
that?
me end this man's career, okay? If we played ranked mode with that soldier, it would be terrible, okay?
Doesn't matter.
Ranked
It's better
mode
than
for
what
this
we
would be
have.
so bad.
No.
It would be so bad. It was so
Frito.
Watch these whole
Ranked
matches with
ranked
soldier
mode still
20
flourished
damage.
when original Brig came out. At least with this soldier, oh, it did. Come on, people raged, but they still played it when big people were playing it. Come on, Frito. Come on.
The intensity
Here's
of
my
being
third
upset
take.
about
I'm gonna-
balance would be so much worse when you have like an Orisa, who is a useless hero in my opinion, and people want to play her and forcing to play the new thing. Like the cultural tension of playing ranked in a fundamentally broken game, you would be complaining about that. Like we'll fix this.
I mean,
fix this
yeah,
thing
but
for
it's
ranked
better.
mode.
But it's still better than
here's
nothing.
here's my third take on it, which is that how much would that move the needle though, Sam? You know, we're talking about these casual players. Like how many more people do you think would even watch on Twitch? Like 10,000 more, 15,000 more? But
Well,
at the
it's
end of
not
the day,
about
the
that.
beta's gonna end. The beta's gonna end. They're gonna go back to not playing Overwatch, and they're gonna go back to fucking off. So either way, they fuck off yesterday, right? When the beta ends.
Yeah, true. But
Well-
I mean, you could say that about every Overwatch comp season.
No, because that you can continue and boot up the next day, but they can't boot up Overwatch 2
I mean,
anymore.
again,
So if
it's
they're
like,
planning to close the beta, then how much
this-
would that move the needle? Is what I'm saying.
It would help, and I think that we should use everything in our arsenal that we have to try to fight tooth and nail for every single consumer, just as all of our competitors do every single day while we've been lacking for 2 years. I think if it's in our power to do it and it's feasible and it's not that hard, when it's like competitive, I refuse to believe it'd be that hard to add the competitive mode. I think that we should do it.
Well, it's
And
definitely
again,
not a
but
difficult.
this
It's
functions
clear,
better.
it's not a difficulty. It's a clear choice, right? It's not about difficulty.
And
It's
I
a
think
choice.
it's a dumb choice. And I think it's that exact mentality that buried this game the last 2.5 years, as it has. I mean, if you look at the results, that's what it is. And again, I agree. I think that we should withhold the big things to the big punch. But the things that we have that exist that make the game better, to me, it's a yes or no question. Does this make the product better? If the answer is yes, and it's feasible, and we don't have to commit too much time to it, which also would give us better data, most likely in a real competitive setting,
Yep.
Freedo, if like you said, Arisa's bad, well, it's hard to tell how good Arisa is
All the casuals thought she was good.
Punk, when you have Punk playing against like a platinum support because the platinum support's backfilled, and I'm watching him throw Chuck Spears across the map.
Yeah, splitting
nail
the
him.
queues doesn't make matchmaking better though. It like
And
makes it
you're
longer.
right, which is why
Your
this
queue times
beta
would be
never should have
triple.
been closed to begin with. That's my perfect case scenario. Should have been open source to get everyone in that you can, right? Then do these things. Again, like that's like my number one thing. Like the foundation of it being closed was the thing that I was the most disappointed with. I get why they want to do it, but I challenge the notion that we should be closing it off at all, given the
Well, let's
predicament
take
that we're in.
take it as a premise that there is a tech limitation that they
Yeah,
only can
what-
allow 1 million, let's say. If so, it's easy to make a point when you say a mythological like dream that you wish could exist, right? Let's say the reality is that they only can allow about 1 million users on the thing, which is why they limited it so much. If that's the case, can they even do competitive matchmaking with multiple queues and it make any sense? I'm just trying to see the reality of the situation, which could
If
be
you're
that.
telling me
So-
that a Fortune 500 company that has games like Warzone running on it are not capable of hosting players, then there's a bigger internal issue at the company. I
Well, every
can't get
game
that
is
How much
follows
of
the
that resource
servers.
is going to the team 4, right? How much of that resource is going to team 4 of Overwatch, the quote unquote dead game?
Well, this is where
Is
we
that
start
not their
to
next
get
big
into
AAA title?
But
But
Modern
not
Warfare
at the
2,
moment, though, isn't it? Not for
I
the
thi-
first closed beta.
maybe Modern Warfare 2. Regardless, I feel like we're getting to the upper ends of Activision Blizzard, which is a little, because at the end of the day, we clearly know something's not firing at all cylinders. Given we're not even gonna get into it in this podcast, but just for agreeing to disagree, Freedo, I'm willing to operate under that the assumption that hey, maybe they couldn't do it, but in that case, Microsoft, get in here, let's get it done. Like either way, I think long term we're still kind of agreeing. I think again, I don't want to dig up too much of what's done. What's done is done. We just got to be forward looking. And I hope in the next one that they do understand that and make the effort to give the features that the game should have, that it currently exists, that it deserves.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I always welcome our healthy discussion. So not an issue at all with us disagreeing. I think it's good to discuss it. Obviously, we're not going to beat the dead horse because it is what it is, but it's good to get our opinions out as well. As Freedo said, almost like a time capsule, because it helps us reflect a while later when we come back and we say, okay, this is what we felt at that time. How do we feel now? So on that note, Flats, anything you want to add before we move on?
I actually got something. I don't know if you want to cover it. That's why. Because Sam made a point. Like, I think we should maybe go around once. Do we want to talk about the Twitch issue? The
the Overwatch 2 versus Overwatch 1 category.
Do we want to talk about that?
We can mention it briefly. Obviously, Freedo doesn't stream on Twitch, so he may not have strong feelings on it. But so the context, if I'm correct, Flats, is that there's both currently an Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2 category right now, and streamers are very confused which one to stream on.
Mm-hmm.
And it obviously splits the viewership, because obviously you want your game to chart higher in the directory, and that causes a knock-on proportional effect on how many people will click.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, how do I put this? I mean, we had to stream Overwatch 1 because of the drops, right? So you have new streamers coming in that streamed in the Overwatch 2 category, and it happened all the time. If you went through that Overwatch 2 category when it was at like 5-6K views, it was like one person with like 5K and then like a bunch of like 50 and unders. You know how much more helpful that would have been if it was all consolidated in one place? And now, and it's just another misstep. You know what I mean? Like, I know like stuff happens, right? Like, I know stuff happens, but it's like at some point, right? This is why I agree with Sam's point about the competitive stuff. It's like the little things add up, you know?
Yeah. Sam, do you want to chime in on that before I feedback? Because obviously I also have personal.
I mean, just put it all into the Overwatch section, honestly. Like, if Overwatch is eventually going to become Overwatch 2, I mean, just choose one or the other. It doesn't. To be honest, it doesn't matter too much to me. But if eventually, you know, my dad has a saying for me, and he taught me this when I was younger. He said, if something's going to happen eventually, just try to do it now. Right? Like, if we really have to pick and choose one, just make it Overwatch 2. I mean, everyone who's streaming Overwatch nowadays kind of knows it, right? They know the transitional phase is coming. They know the betas are coming. In a month, we get our roadmap announced. I mean, we're going to eventually change anyway. Let's just do it now.
Well, this is where it's odd, because I think the devs were kind of the POV that they are trying to get that category removed or something, but they weren't able to.
Either one. Just pick one. It's no big deal to me.
I mean, I think in the grand scheme of thing, I don't think it was a huge thing. I understand Flats' grievance, because obviously as a streamer myself, it's kind of like,
where it was like 40-20 at one point.
Yeah, so it's definitely annoying, but I don't think, again, I think it's not. You're right. It's one of those the straw that broke the camel's back, right? It's like these things keep piling on. It feels frustrating, but yeah, I wasn't too fussed about it at the end of the day. It seems like they had some technical issues. I do think, to conclude a round off, I do think the devs have been making a lot of right moves with a lot of constraints and a lot of pressure, is what it feels like to me. It feels like a lot of constraints that they've been working under, this being potentially one of them, where I don't know if Twitch were like, you know, not cooperating to down that category for a while, or what was going on. But I think they made a lot of right moves. Now, let's go on to what we kind of already alluded to, which is the sort of more substantive stuff we can talk about. Maybe, as Freedo said, actually have some meaningful conversation that might affect the future, the support changes. So, I mean, Sam and Flats and Freedo and I were kind of talking in our group DM, and, you know, we kind of, I think, largely agreed on the sentiment that a lot of these support changes feel a little bit like an overreaction. Now, I know as soon as I say, I know some people are going to be in chat like, none of you guys are actually support players, so you guys are just biased because you're like, you know, you're mostly tank players and DPS players. So I will caveat, and I have to do this because there's always people who are unaware. Sam played professionally support for like over a year. How long was it that you professionally had to play support, Sam?
It was February to mid-August. So yeah,
so
about 6 months. Yeah.
So yeah, Sam lock in the brig for like 6 months straight. So he does know.
Some Ana too. Some Ana too. On floats map.
Support
so,
SVB.
Yeah,
and I was gonna say, and I basically am a support main now. I was a tank main, but I spent the last like year solid playing almost exclusively support. So I personally feel like they were an overreaction. So I'll just get my thing out there first. As a support player, I felt like the support changes were an overreaction. I got in there the first day they added the map change, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, this is ridiculous. Just on the look of it, it's like they're 10 HP, you right click and shift, and they're full HP for a 200 HP target, this being. And it feels like an overreaction to me, and it does feel like my assessment on it, on the support change before I ask you guys' opinion. I feel like the devs are a lot more shaky in their stances than they were historically. I think in the past, Blizzard have been quite, you could say arrogant, hubris, confident, whatever, however you want to phrase it. They've always been quite bullish. Sam was perhaps the word Sam would use, right? They've been quite strong, like this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. Suck it up. If you don't like it, you don't understand. You think you want it, but you don't. I think especially in the Overwatch team, I think the last 2 years or so have really kind of shaken that core belief of like unshakable. We're making the right decisions, and I feel like the good thing is they're trying to listen to the community more. Is what I see. It feels like the devs are a lot more like we really need to listen to our community, but I feel like in this case they do need to have a bit more of that unshakable attitude. Now, I'm not saying completely. I do appreciate they're listening, but this feels like, oh my god, support players are upset, and this could be the new tank of Overwatch 2. Like the way tank players hate Overwatch 1, this could happen in Overwatch 2 now. So we have to quickly react hard. Got to give them something really good to play with. I will caveat that maybe this was just a sort of let's throw some shit in the park because it's just quick play in the last week of the beta. So maybe we can do some crazy changes with BAP and Mercy, and it doesn't really change anything because it's not going to go to Overwatch League. There's no competitive mode to jeopardize. So it might have been deliberately extreme. It might have been extreme for the sake of stress testing, but it felt like an overreaction. Now, does it concern me for the balance of Overwatch 2? Not really, but it is not great. So on that note, I'm going to take it to Sam first. Sam, the resident support change expert, what was your feelings on it?
So first, I do want to give credit to the hero design team. I'm someone who's obviously been very critical of them in the past. I think justifiably so. But I actually think that they've done a really great job this year, like around the board. Like I think obviously you're gonna have one or two offs that but I think that I want to give them credit because I think that they understand what the issues are. I just think the way they went about it was wrong. Like I think giving Mercy permaflight is just not the answer because there are plenty of ways to abuse it. I do think they are right to make super jump an ability, but as all abilities should have a cooldown, right? And I've kind of talked about what I would personally do to supports is I think that with the faster pace tempo of the game, supports just need the frequency to actually compete with how fast the game moves. And you do that by increasing the frequency of their cooldowns, but reducing the actual power of them so that they can contribute more in the fight. And then you can contribute that power level as much, you can change that power level as much as you need to after seeing how the heroes actually perform. That being said, I think I was not a fan of the BAP or the Mercy changes. And just in terms of the way they were implemented, I think they did slightly change the BAP day one, right? They hotfixed something about BAP. I forget exactly if anyone here remembers what it was. I think his health was like doubling or something or maybe chat could help us out here. But I think that they are right to be looking at support. If people don't remember, actually back in Open Queue, the big issue back in Moth meta is that no one was playing support. So like support was actually the first tank of the game back in Open Queue because no one would play it unless they played Ana. So you'd have an Ana solo healing like 4 DPS. And it's just like, super. Or some guy like you guys ever saw the Overwatch animated shorts were genius, hilarious. Dopatsu made them. They were brilliant. Like the one DPS player willing to swap to Zen solo heal my Reinhardt. So look, I think that given time and by the time the next beta comes out, I think that they'll have a better understanding about how to actually implement that. I coined the term Harrier Jet Mercy meta. And people were like, this is so broken. I'm like, yeah, it's broken, but like, this is not the wrong idea. Like, and that's what's really, really important. I feel like their heads are wired in the right place. And I think under the pressure that they've been put under, they've actually been performing pretty well. So give them time, give them some effort. And I think that after a couple more tweaks, that they'll probably get this one right too. Cause they did get tank right, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And now I'm going to take it to Freedo, who hasn't spoken in a while, but with your channel, it was Eddie who returned with the video. So those of you who've not seen it, a great video. Supports are not bad, you are, was the proclamation from your Overwatch. Freedo, do you stand by that?
Well, I think yes, but also I don't think the buffs were an overreaction because I actually don't think they're as OP. The buffs that they got aren't as OP as they look on paper, just due to how easy I think they are to target by everything else in the game. So, for example, okay, just answer your question first, and then what were the buffs and overreaction? Ed's a little biased because he plays Ana, and Ana probably could be debated to be low-key the strongest hero in the game, like in the beta we played, especially the first patch that the pros are playing. That seems very obvious. I think Sam's point is kind of interesting, and he brought this up on the previous shows, I think, where he suggested reducing the cooldown of her, reducing the cooldown of her abilities, but make them less impact. Whereas support right now, if Ana's like the centerpiece of the position, is like huge impact, but if you fuck it up, then you die instantly, right? Like, because that's how Ana feels, which means if you have the skill to play the positions properly and really abuse that 1 second reheal passive, you are the strongest hero, pretty much, because things try to poke you, you can poke back, you self-heal, and then nuke. And if you do that, then you're like, oh wow, like everything falls. So it'll be interesting to see what direction they move for the next beta. Like the first beta was kind of knee-jerk maybe, because it's just a test anyway. So they're like, well, let's just throw these things in and see what happens. So I'm kind of fine with them being more experimental with it. And maybe if they use that word, maybe the expectations might change a bit for the beta period if they said experimental, but rather than quick play, let's say, or something. Kind of an interesting thought I just had. But like, for example, the Mercy change. Oh wait, I finished that first point. Supports aren't bad, you are. Yes, support players are pretty bad. Like I think it's the truth. and Overwatch 1 did coddle them. So I agree with a lot of the points Ed made, but I also think being more in tune with the trying to be anyway with the average player, they also just didn't feel very fun. And it felt like the strongest thing you could do is pick ones that ran away better rather than risking and needing skill. So you got to put yourself in the position of someone who isn't very skilled at the game playing support. How do they feel? And it's like Zen is just a throw pick, right? For example, like never pick in Overwatch 2 in the first version. And they're not good enough to play Ana in the way I described just previously. So it comes down to Lucio and Moira. And if that's the game, it's like, this isn't what I signed up to play Overwatch for. Now, as a Lucio player, I'm having a ball because it's like you just go around the map and you go take any tool you want. And you have overpowered self-heal. And I'm like, oh, this is the best game ever. But if you're not, that also is like a skill set not a lot of players have. So when I see them try to empower a slower aspect of the game, I think the game actually kind of needs that, because Overwatch 2, and I feel like sometimes me and Sam have clashed on this point, because he's very good, and you're like, anytime it's a dive meta where things are moving, like I'm playing Doom, I'm playing Genji, and I'm just zipping around and killing everyone, and this is great. For me as an old man, and I think for a lot of support players especially, that really are going to be missing the security of those like strategical, tactical Overwatch gameplay, with the maps being so porous, they need something to slow the game down. That isn't a stun. So how do we do that? I think having powerful cooldowns or wacky movement and things like that are like a good direction to take it. And then maybe I'll mention if I think the specific changes were too much. Zen having more health and kick. A lot of the times he, I will say he's definitely a lot harder to kill and maybe would be like an S tier hero. I'm not exactly sure at the higher tiers. But without teamwork, he's still fairly easy to kill for most things, I think, in sort of a pub setting. But he'll definitely be viable once you start to protect him and play around him. Are we afraid of, like, at the higher tiers, Brig Zen or Bap Zen being so good once they force this? My question would be, even if they forced that to be a competitive backline, would it hurt the game? And I don't think it would, because I think you would just slow down, play around cover a bit more, and it won't be wacky 6 flanks happening at the same time, or 5 now. It's 5v5. We instead could actually like methodically take some map control and think about our engagements a bit more. Whereas now, Overwatch 2 in the beta, it's a lot of scrappy fights, a lot of sub fights, sub skirmishes, cutting off respawns, coming in and out. And it's Overwatch for a lot of players, I think, are missing that like team regroup element, which I know, of course, this is me learning the process that you're seeing. If you're a podcast fan of the group of podcasts, this is me learning and coming to the light and really trying, honestly, to like figure out why people weren't agreeing with me. Because I'm like, well, Overwatch 2 is everything I want. What are people missing when they say Overwatch 1 is more tactical and strategic? And I think the support position needs those tools, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. They need Zen to be able to kick things away. They need Mercy to have some overpowered movement in order for them to interact with where the game's at. And that tactical side, since we don't have 2 tanks anymore to interact and ebb and flow, I think we should expect them to have those OP abilities. But even when Mercy flies, just I don't know. There's a lot of things that yes, it's OP against a lot of things, but a lot of things can just shoot her out of the sky. Like I saw Mercy's trying to use it, and against a lot of characters I play anyway, it didn't feel impossible to kill her. It's just like almost easier to kill her sometimes when she's flying. So there's limits to it, and even BAP as well. Being able to self-heal, while it certainly will make BAP Zen very strong because you actually can hold position, I think in general, the characters that hold position in Overwatch 2 are like almost fundamentally bad. Like just because there's not positions to hold. You're not playing Assault anymore, where you sit on Anubis high ground and wait. Like there just isn't maps like that. So some of this can be fixed with map design. Some of it might not be inherently like that great anyway. I am worried though for balance overall in the game, because I think the singular meta problem is big, but we know where that leads to the bingo card. So I'll leave that point there. Let's I see people nodding. So
We'll get there. We'll get
I won't win
there.
bingo today.
We'll get there. We'll get there. I want to let Flats have a say because he hasn't had anything to say in a while. So Flats, your takes on the support changes.
I was saying this a little bit earlier, but I do think that they've done a good job with like tank and DPS and support at the beginning of kind of understanding like what they need to do. And I think that you said it right, SVBs. They need to be more confident in their own decisions to an extent, obviously, because I thought support was really strong going into the beta. I was like, what? This is actually like way stronger than I thought it was going to be. But everyone else didn't feel that way. And that's kind of where the whole notion became of, oh, support isn't bad. You are, right? Well, let's kind of talk about that a little bit, right? I think that Sam kind of has it right as well with talking about like they should be able to do more and contributing more, right? Like think about like what people thought was fun. Orissa's fun, right? Like why was Orissa fun? Even though I didn't think she was very good and everyone kept yelling at me like, why is Orissa not good? You don't know what you're talking about. I was like, okay. The Javelin, fun. Amazing fun. I actually had someone play. He's actually Emong's roommate. He never played Overwatch before. His first hero he ever really played was Orisa, and he loved it. He fell in love with it. He was playing every day after his WoW stream for like 3 or 4 hours, and he loved the cooldowns. He loved the way the hero felt, the way it played, and it was fun. And those are really good things. But like when you start to get towards like the balance end, why was Orisa not good? Well, without her cooldowns, she was useless. She did not have any good uptime. She had nothing in between. And I think that philosophy falls over to supports. When Zen got gigabuffed, I'm going to tell you right now, when Zen started getting played in the beta, the tank rolls fun went down by about 40%, I would say instantly. You know why? Because the same terrible mechanic is still in the game, the same level. Damage amplification / damage taking increased. Window, damage boost for Mercy, and Zen Discord are fundamentally impossible to balance. Because there will be breakpoints, right? Like you balance Ashe to the point where if she's getting damage boost, a headshot does 195, so you kind of have like a little bit of wiggle room. But fundamentally, it is impossible to balance. Because something like Zen, you can't account for how many people are shooting for him. You can't account for teamwork. You can't account for people getting up on one person and shooting at them. Someone like Orisa, who doesn't have a shield or an escape other than her spinny spear, or even Fortify if she's, uses it early so the armor can be the big cushion, just falls over, just falls apart. And it sucks a lot of the fun out of it, right? So where's the problem is those numbers in between. Like Discord Orb is something that, in my opinion, isn't that skillful. You put it on somebody, you either call it out to your teammates or you wait for people to go on it. Or what a lot of players do is they just put it on a tank and they leave it there. That tank now can do 30% less. Like, I know it's like 20, 25, but you can't just be aggressive. You're going to get punished. You're going to blow up. They aren't actively engaging with you. They literally put it on you and it sits there. That's it. I think that that's unengaging gameplay. I think that that's why things like Mercy damage boost and Valk, not Valk, Discord and even Window always got like these big, like these are terrible for the game. If you want to keep something like a damage amplification or increase or take more damage, it needs to be a very low number. Unless it's something like Sombra. Something like 15%, right? Because it's not active. How do you account for that, right? Like, I think that Zen being able to like constantly do damage and heal and the kick and all that stuff is like really interactive, but they need to look at those impacting the other hero abilities to more than anything, right? Because I hate to say it, but I feel like half the supports need reworks. You know, I don't see them being able to be balanced, and that's going to be like a long-term problem. You know, like I think Brig needs a rework. I still think Brig needs a rework. I think she's going to be bad for low players and still good in higher ranks, unless she just gets butchered and then nobody plays her.
I think with Brig, if they did a better job of visualizing what she was actually doing, that would solve it. That was a big problem that I really struggled with. Like I fed on Brig for weeks, because I didn't realize where I was actually impacting until like my coach sat me down. I was like, Sam, like here's what you have to understand. This is your area of impact, and it was like a very hard learning curve. And I think that that's something that the game we talked about, like visually leading for lower SR. Like what was Flats or Freedo? One of you guys were telling me something about somebody in your chat or your comment section like didn't know that a certain hero did a certain thing until you told them. They're like, really? And you're like, yeah. Like, did y'all not know that? Do y'all remember what I'm talking about, or am I just going off on a random tangent here? I might.
Sounds familiar, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
Not quite specific enough, unfortunately.
Someone recently told me that they didn't realize that hitting the whip triggered Inspire, and I was just like,
yes.
Oh, yeah, it might have been actually.
Yeah, so just stuff like that where like I feel like the game could do a better job of visualizing what's going on. But Flats, to talk about your point more, and this is something we used to see Jeff Kaplan talk about a lot. You know, say what you want about the business model. I still have a lot of respect for Jeff, and he truly is, you know, a titan of this industry. He always talked about, and I loved just hearing him or seeing him talk about this. Art and science, right, is what they pay attention to when they're designing their game, right? And the main reason it's not just science that I want the supports to have more impact by lowering their cooldowns and increasing the frequency. It's actually a lot to do with the art and the player perception of contributing with uptime and throwing the on-a-nade, or Lucio amping speed more consistently. It gives the player not necessarily the illusion, because it's not just an illusion that they are contributing. They actually are, but they're just doing it more consistently, and that is just more enjoyable, as you said about Emong's roommate. Like, you know, the constant cooldowns and throwing the spear, like that's fun, and it looks fun, and it's very easy for an average consumer to come and be like, oh, I'm contributing. Because Freedo, how many videos have you made about lower SR players in your coaching series that are completely misusing cooldowns? Be like, well, what am I doing wrong? But like they still have the perception, everything. Yeah. But they still have the perception of I'm contributing. And that is a great way to keep the skill floor of the game low, but keep people engaged and keep the skill ceiling as high as possible, so that that learning curve and that journey that the player goes on can seem almost indefinite, hopefully increasing the longevity of their play. Sorry to kind of take that conversation over, Flats, back to you, but I think it's a really, really important point.
No, I think you actually nailed it. I think you actually did a better job of putting it into words than I could. You know, I think that the knee-jerk reaction was support was boring. Right? Like more than anything of the whole community. And then Blizzard reacted to try to make it more fun for people, right? Like they tried to add more interactive things. Like I think that's why Zen Kick was taken so well. It was as a fun new ability. Now, was it broken? Yeah. I mean, I think everyone could say that. You know, I think everyone was fine with being broken because it's just a beta. But making things flow better and making it more fun is huge. Like, you know, let's say Brig made her star return in Overwatch 2, right? Why would Brig be so good? Because she can just passively stand there and do a ton. That's not fun gameplay. That's not engaging gameplay. I think that the reworks show that they actually really have a good grasp of how 5v5 should play and how it should work. But I hate to be the person that says I think half the roster needs reworks to fit in 5v5, because they just don't totally work there. And I think that's why support was so boring. The reason why tank was so fun, like let's think about it for a second. Orisa was boring, reworked. We got Doom Tank, which Doom Tank is fun because like the synergy of the cooldowns, like you constantly feel like you're doing something. You're Eing in, or you're slamming in, you're punching in, block, get your punch back up, boom, hit him into the wall. Like you have ult, like you felt like you're constantly in dynamic, you're constantly doing something. Maybe less fun tanks, probably D.Va. D.Va didn't get played a lot. People, they thought D.Va was pretty weak, and I actually kind of started to agree towards like the middle part of the beta. Zarya didn't get played that much. Sigma didn't get played that much. These are like Zarya, I think, is an exception, but even like Sigma's very passive gameplay. You put the shield up, and then you shoot two orbs, throw a rock suck. But like there's nobody really pressuring you the same way like an old double shield. Double shield, like your shield was breaking really fast. Like you got to go for the suck when it breaks, cover for your other tank and your Orisa. The rocks were really impactful. But like it doesn't hit the same way in Overwatch 2. And I think almost the whole support roster has that problem, except like Ana, Lucio. I would say even Moira is not really that fun.
Well,
it just escapes, you know?
Because the thing is, I know someone's going to say, is like, well, that's subjective to you, Flats. You know, you don't find that fun, but I find Sig fun, or I find Brig fun. And maybe that comes down to what a point Freedo made earlier about the more methodical play style. Because I guess where Doomfist is a bit more explosive, he's a bit more like, I'm doing stuff. The Brig play style is a lot more slow and methodical, right? It's like trigger, inspire, and chill. Trigger, inspire, and chill. Okay, I bash this guy, or now you're just not stunning them, but you're still kind of controlling them. And that might be the same for Sigma as well. And is that something you feel, Freedo? Because you're kind of nodding as well. Like, where do you stand on this?
I think I was taking notes. I have two things to say. We'll talk about character fun. Maybe I'm just diff than you guys, but I thought Sig was very fun personally in Overwatch 2. I think there's a lot of, maybe it's just a dirty Junkrat player in me that's like, oh, I'm Junkrat with a shield. Like I just take these positions and nuke things. I don't know. He feels pretty strong on when you get set him up.
He's good.
Like borderline, like free. Like
I never saw people play Sigma.
Aggressive. Yeah, I think because he's not new. I think you're right in that regard. But like, it's almost like they made, because remember we always complained about Sigma being a DLC type hero, and well, Doom and Orisa became more like Sig. So it's like in comparison, it's like, oh, he's the old DLC hero, but he's still got all these like extra interactions. I think to do
Also,
is like
Winston
shield
farms
like
when Winston's strong. So that's another part of
Yeah.
it, I think.
Yeah, that's another fact. You do have to set him up. Casino Royale probably the best, but even Brig, it's like I find Brig fun because I have like two modes that I like to play Overwatch in. The hardcore feed characters, big fan of those, but then also like the take it slow, think about it characters, and in that way, like Brig seems very good to me. Now the problem is I know how to play her. To Sam's point, right? It's like, I don't know what they're going to do with it because they've always had the same problem with her, is that she's only good when you know how to play her, and a lot of the community just don't really learn that. But I think maybe that'll come with time because they don't have the crutch of the easy kills with her anymore. Whereas Brig in Overwatch 1 for like the mass player base essentially was, don't learn how to position or how to path or what ground matters. Pick the character that stuns. So when the thing takes position on you and falls on you, you just stun it and kill it for free, and then it's like Doomfist be gone. Basically, it's like a spray. They
like a wand. It's a Harry Potter now.
Yeah. Skillless reparo. It's like you have to solve the problem instead of learning anything. And I always had a huge problem with that because that's what people thought Brig was. Whereas at a higher level, and you see this even on the first patch that they're playing on in the Overwatch League, Brig is getting some playtime. And she still has that really oppressive nature of being able to just stick on the high ground and be kind of that pseudo tank where she can repel dives and big healing. And I don't know, I like that as like a nerd of the game who wants to kind of fit in. And ideally, like if I'm playing competitively, I need those characters to survive. Okay, I need Blizzard to give me a character that I can just kind of do my part and not mess it up and then help everyone, and then I can get to higher ranks. But so I desperately need that as like a bad player who wants to learn through game sense, and that's kind of where I'm getting to with the support role and what we should expect. They need more of that. I don't think it would be wise for them to turn support into the high octane Doomfist 2.0 gameplay. I think instead, I think they're going the direction of they get to slow the game down, which gives me to the other point. Flats was speaking about the effectiveness of Discord and how it keeps a tank at bay. And you took it back saying, well, you get to do 20% less, not 30 or whatever. I think you actually, when you're Discorded, you probably get to do 50% as much. I would go so far. I think you went the other way. You try to downplay it. I think when you are Discorded as a tank, you can take like half the positions that you used to be able to.
Especially as Doomfist.
Because whereas you might have that little bit extra health to like overextend a little bit, now a lot of positions and pathing, you just will not survive. So it forces the game to be more defensive, and you have to be much more methodical and careful on where you go. We actually agree on that. I just think that's sometimes a good thing for the game because the game so far for a lot of people moves too fast and is too punishing with forcing duels all the time. Like that's something we talked about in the last show, right? It's like we kind of got to this point of well, Doomfist isn't OP, just pick Ana and sleep him, forehead. And that's okay if you're good, but a lot of players like can't aim at all. So they like need some options to interact with the game that's ability based, that doesn't overwhelm the game and make you win. We don't want double shield BAP with an immortality behind 2 shields. Yeah, we all agree we don't want that. But I kind of like that there's some abilities that can mark and slow the game down, because I think the map design and 5v5 alone allows for it to move naturally. And we all have our own little biases here. Like I have 2 biases. One, thinking of the average player, and then the other is overly high level play. Like I really like Owl, right? So I'm watching all these Owl matches and I'm excited when I see a regroup. I'm like, oh boy, some downtime.
Yeah.
I can like count and feel I know where the engagement's coming from. Wow. And I almost miss being able to slow the game down a bit. It's maybe a whole nother separate conversation, and maybe doesn't matter to us and our audiences so much because it's like a esports problem, but we kind of thought 5v5 would make the game easier to watch. And it actually, at the start anyway, was harder. Now, it might get better when the top level players learn how to have better ult economy and aren't trying to clutch all the time and whatnot. But anyway, whatever.
That's
It's a whole
what you
separate
mean
point.
by that, like harder to watch.
Well, more action on screen, more smaller duels. It's hard to, because if every player can pop off at any given time, it's hard to know who's the key player in that moment. Whereas when the game's more tactical, more set play, more ultimate based, it's obvious where the big play is going to come from. Whereas now with Overwatch 2, you don't know if all of a sudden like the Brig gets all the final blows of the thing, or if when the Tac Visor and the Genji Blade go at each other, like who's gonna, it's really hard to know who's gonna win. And as a player, that's way better. But as a spectator, it's really hard to follow.
I want to quickly chime in, which is to get everyone's getting their hot takes in. My hot take is I have a big beef with the way Owl is spectated. I think that's a spectating problem, not a viewing problem. Because Sam and I, we casted the fantasy Overwatch, and we were able to make sense of everything, and it was really fun. I think the way Owl spectates is fundamentally bad. They always focus on first person POV and they miss everything, like exactly what you're talking about, Freedo, which is that there's a lot of duels going on and a lot of things that like this thing happened and you miss that thing and the whole fight falls apart. Whereas in Overwatch 1, it's much more easy to tell what that thing is going to be. In Overwatch 2, that thing is much more flexible. But that's a problem of just, if you take a step back and look at the whole fight, you'll be able to see that happen. But because Owl is like, let's spectate this Genji. Oh shit, the Winston got slept somewhere else. We missed it, fight over. That's the problem. Chiming in real quick.
I agree with that actually a lot. That's kind of my approach. Is I think the idea, and like correct me if I'm wrong on this, is like the idea is like it's easier to consume to watch because you don't have 2 shields, Symmetra shields, Brig shield. Everything's flashing. It's like a half of a rave is going on. Like it's cleaner. You know what I mean? Like it's harder to follow.
Concert.
Yeah, I think actually maybe I'm wrong on this. Did Overwatch like get a new production team too, or something like that? So maybe the new production team isn't as like good at predicting. Plus, it's a new game, so like they're having a hard time. I'm sure like. I don't know anything about that side, so it was all speculation. Is like I'm sure there's like some training of like how to look for who's gonna have the next like big pop off moment, and they don't have the info or the data yet to figure out who is the like to predict what's gonna happen next. And like that's realistically what they're doing is predicting what happens next to try to show us the action, instead of like we're seeing it later. You know what I mean? Like it's not like, oh, like we watched that happen. Now we can flip to it because like we're like 10 seconds in the past, or you know what I mean, or something like that. But I think that's probably where the biggest struggle is. But I actually thought the game looked a lot cleaner to watch interactively. It's just like you don't have to worry about 19 shields in the way and an Onanade flew over from the top, and you know what I mean. Like that's my own take.
Anyways, that's a slight tangent. Anyways, I just wanted to get my quick rant.
My fault.
But Freedo,
It's okay.
So, you go ahead,
the Owl point maybe is debatable, but I think the to keep it in subject, the point I was trying to make is that a lot of support players are feeling like they can't slow the game down. Is essentially what I mean, because it's about flanking and off little duels, and it's less about structure. Which it's not like I want Overwatch 1 back, because maybe this is another classic change of subject, but going back to Overwatch 1, I got a mix of gameplay experiences where one, the game having the potential to be a bit slower, I'm like, okay, I can see what people missed. But on the other hand, playing a game of Assault where your team doesn't regroup for the whole game is horrible. So we got to realize like why ultimately we were going the right direction. Like as much as I like Assault at a high level, Overwatch 1 being more about staying with your team and that like securing a nice comfy blanket around the whole team comp. It's like, oh, we all kind of work together. And as long as we hold position, it's an easy time. And going back to Overwatch 1, I think a lot of you might notice this as well. As you start to gain an advantage in Overwatch 1, your ability to throw the fight from there is like quite low. Whereas in Overwatch 2, as the fight breaks out, even though Al has a stat that first pick means a lot. Let's put that to the side. Overwatch 2, there's a lot of ways you can, if you mess up, they can then fight back, right? It's not just easy to walk forward and win, like I think is in Overwatch 1. But because of that, so much of the game was about just regrouping for many players, right? Just regrouping well. And we don't have that anymore, and that's a good thing. But I still think supports being a bit more robust is probably the right call to make overall, end of the day.
Can I ask a
And
question?
of course, yeah, go ahead, Sam.
You go first, SVB.
No, if your question's related, go ahead.
Yeah. So speaking of slowing the game down and a way Brig could do it, I always wondered, do you all think that they could change Inspire and to again visually lead, right? Do you all think they could change Inspire to be more of like a cooldown instead of a passive that like functions very similarly to a soldier biofield that like obviously a bigger range slightly that could only come up every so often that would be way more visually like, hey, like, you know how you can look at an immortality field and be like, oh, that's an immortality field. I know what that is, right? Do you think there'd be a way for Inspire to be implemented to make Brig like truly a defensive hero that would be much easier for like an average player to pick up and understand?
Yes.
It's a lot of speculation. It's hard to say, but like her rally has like an aura which makes it tangible, like where the rally is affecting, right?
Oh, like
And the same way
crossfade. That'd be a better example. Crossfade.
yeah, like
or something
crossfade
like
as
that.
well. And
Yeah.
rally and crossfade, I was going to use the example that you see them, and even when Anna's healing someone, you see the little remnants
Yeah,
of
that little
her
sparkle
thing,
over
right?
it.
But
Yeah.
you're right. It's like maybe the question is it would be too big if it wasn't a circle itself. Like if you were just seeing the Brig, because you know the Brig has the little plus signs when she heals someone, but that's maybe
Yeah.
too much for 6 people to have. So
Mhm.
maybe because it's just a circle.
Yeah, I just speculation, just a question. I was curious what people thought about. You want to slow the game down? Well, I think a good way to do that, at least in general play, again, art and science. This is more the art side. Hey, let's show people. Hey, look, if you see moths to a flame, that's the best way I like to describe it. Gold. Oh, gold players see something shiny, I'm shooting it. You know, and I feel like that'd be maybe a good way to help iron that out a little bit. But I just again pure speculation there. SVB, back to you.
Well, what I was going to bring it to is the part we haven't even mentioned yet, and this is where the conflict comes, right? Because as a player who cares about the competitive mode, I like a slower pace of balancing. I know Freedo talked about this a lot towards the end of Overwatch 1, where he's like, I actually like that we don't balance too often because that way we can actually settle down the meta and then decide stuff. And this is where, again, my take of like, I feel like the support changes their own reaction. Because we haven't even mentioned is that there's new supports coming, one, maybe more. And we don't know what that's going to do. Now, the only people who do know are the balance team. So maybe the balance changes they're making are with an eye to what they know they're about to drop. But the way it's even more potentially alarming, or not alarming, but potentially impactful when the support comes out in Overwatch 2 because there's so few. And so the options can be, potentially exponentially much bigger now, even if we just add one, because also remember, they're in pairs. We took away tank pairings because they had such a potential ramification. What happens when this new support comes along and it interacts with Batiste or Zen or Brig or Mercy in like a way that we just didn't even know, right? And that's where I kind of feel like we've jumped the gun a little bit, being like, we need to address supports right now because they're fundamentally weak. Well, where's support heading? Now, again, maybe the devs know all of this. Maybe they know where support is heading. Maybe they know exactly what they're unleashing, and that's why they're making these changes. But me personally, I'm kind of like, I think they're fine. Okay, a few tweaks here or there. Give them new toys. But when the big shiny new car comes in, let them drive that first before we start, renovating the garage beforehand, right? So I'm a little bit like, let's wait for the new support. But what do you guys think? Do you think it's going to be potentially game changing, or do you think it's going to be a bit more underwhelming like Sojourn was?
I have quite a few thoughts. Is Flats
Go
muted?
ahead,
Did you
Freedo.
want to hop in?
Mine's pretty quick,
Maybe
sure.
comments chat. Good.
I think that support had FOMO. I thought support was fine going into the beta. I know it was the least played role. I know that people didn't enjoy it, but I think to bring back a point that was made here earlier is that most people got in the beta to try the new things and to feel how the game plays and just see all the shiny new stuff. Support had no shiny new stuff. Didn't get shiny new stuff. Damage had a bunch of changes / I don't want to say like reworks, but like Cassidy Grenade had Sojourn, you know what I mean? Like things felt very different, you know, for a lot of the characters. I think support missed it because they had none, realistically. So support players were, I think, more upset they didn't get any content and felt left out than the support being weak. More than anything. And I think that will be changed with the next beta. You know what? I think Blizzard's going to go, I think they're going to go to the wall with it and go 2 new support heroes. That's my prediction.
It's a bold call, man.
Mm-hmm.
The Q times did improve when they gave Sparta Kick to Zen, though. And they leveled out a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I forget the premise. I got interested in what you said, and I forgot what I was going to say.
What's this new support hero going to do for us?
Okay, yeah, I didn't want to say that because who knows? But what I will say is it's interesting. Their philosophy, I think, and I suppose maybe I'm the only one on the show that doesn't think it was too knee-jerk the things they did, but because generally, like, okay, so health buff and more heal on BAP, like these are substantial buffs, but I don't think they were giga insane buffs to me, just because of how easy it is to play around supports when they don't have the protection, and you still have to like actively engage with a lot of these things. Like you still have to, just nothing's free in Overwatch 2 for the most part, other than Brig running away or something or whatever. Like it's not, there's not a lot of easy things that exist. And even playing a character like Mercy, there's less safety. So it's like, well, she's easy, but everything's hunting you down all the time. So an interesting thing that they said in the patch notes that we might do well to remember as their philosophy is when they changed Soldier, not only did they tune back him being overtuned, they went to explain that the changed attack visor, which allows him to headshot during attack visor, they expressly said this, wasn't to counteract losing power elsewhere, but to make him more playable, right? And I think a thing like Harrier Jet Mercy is just a thing they've said they wanted to do for a while. Like it isn't like, I just expected that to eventually come. And I see some mechanics to be like that, where they're just trying to get the interactivity of these characters up to snuff, like Zen, for example. It's just that maybe they had that idea. Like I don't know. To us, it's like a knee-jerk reaction. But again, the 50-80 rule, I have no idea if they're like. The thing we have to remember, when they test this in alpha and beta or whatever, it was their goal to make Sojourn overtuned. We didn't even play the most broken version. They said this on stream, I think. The first version of Sojourn always had the railgun. There was no charge up mechanic. It was just a flying Widowmaker with a railgun. Pew, pew, pew. And their goal was to see, is this fun to interact with? Is this a play? So they're stress testing it, is my point. And a lot of these things are like stress testing the bounds and getting metrics on it before they move to the next level. So I doubt they would remove Sparta Kick Zen or Harrier Jet Mercy, but I also think adding the mechanics is more important than worrying about the numbers. Because if we think the numbers of BAP having an increased amount of healing per the health threshold, which is a buff they gave it, when the characters are under 50%, they get more benefit from regenerative burst. If we don't like the number of that, they can tune that. But it's more about getting the mechanic in there of learning a new mechanic of the character and how to interact with the game. That's important for them. Am I making any sense here? So they're already on this route, I guess. I think my point has concluded, so I will stop.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It's a fair point, and if definitely one I would like to consider my opinion on, which is that, firstly, that who knows if the Zen changes were knee-jerk or if they were already planned, and secondly, like you said, it's more, I agree with this philosophically, which is that it's more important to add the fun things now and worry about their balance later than to make this the most balanced version and then start adding stuff when you've actually released a competitive mode, when it's actually out, when it's actually live. So I agree with those
ready for
statements.
go.
And again, this is what I'm finding constantly. I have to do is like
Thanks, kid. Appreciate it.
balance the desire as a fickle gamer to have new shiny stuff all the time, and versus balancing the desire for like old gamer who's like, I want a competitive good game. Like those are often at a conflict. But yeah, Sam, do you have anything you want to add on the sort of
On the note of like Sparta Kick and Harrier Jet, I like I don't necessarily mind the notion of them. I was just concerned that there's no cooldowns on them, and anytime you add an ability or a big functionality without a cooldown, it's very easy to let it get out of hand. Like 4 seconds on each of them, I think would be fine. So in terms of new supports, that was the main question, right? Like where we think
Yes.
they're taking supports. It's honestly, there's just no way to really know, especially given Kaplan not being with us anymore. Because I remember he used to talk about like on interviews and stuff like that. Oh, just you guys wait. So like the new sports stuff comes out, and we're like, and obviously it's been like two years since. So like it's really tough to tell, because it depends on when it was made. Right? They would have had to change it a lot since then. I think it's gonna have to be we'll wait and see, and that's definitely what I'm looking forward to for the next beta, which I do think they'll do a good job on. Honestly, if I had to guess, like I think that over time that this game will end up like Apex in that hey, it's just gonna be a slow, steady recuperation back towards the front lines, and I think we're probably gonna see. I think there's surely no chance that the biggest thing that gets addressed in the next beta will be support changes. I think it's just for this one, for obvious reasons, it had to be tank, right? You go to 5v5, you remove one from the game. That is priority number one. And I think going forward now, especially with how the queue times reflected that, there's absolutely no doubt that they're not looking very adamantly at supports. And I expect to see, I'm not going to say they're going to put out 2 new supports. I wouldn't be surprised. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised with anything because I refuse to believe that beta is everything they had done for 2 years or had planned or done whatever, because like there was at least some kind of planning going on. So I think that's kind of like the ace up their sleeve that they're thinking about pulling out, and I'm looking forward to seeing it, and I can't really make any premonitions on it till we do. The same with 6v6 going to 5v5. 5v5 ended up playing better than a lot of us thought it did, so we had to wait and see.
And I think that's where it comes down to. I think that might be partly why it felt so like underwhelming in some ways, if I can say that, is that maybe it surprised them how successful 5v5 was. Because again, remember that a lot of us were very concerned, right? Like Flats, you and I had like a 2-hour discussion when 5v5 was announced about like, could this ruin the game, right? So I think maybe their whole philosophy was just, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, but maybe they just came in thinking, let's just see if 5v5 even works. Like, what if we have to make a lot of changes to make 5v5 work? Right. So that could have been their philosophy, where they were ready to kind of, with the wrenches and hammers ready to like insta repair the brokenness. But then we played and we were like, yeah, this is good. This is fun. And then what else you got? And they were like, well, that's kind of what we mostly wanted to give you because we weren't sure if you would hate it or not. So what do you want? You know what I mean? So I do wonder if that was partly why. And again, the crawl, walk, run, right? This was the crawl. Let's see the walk and the run.
Yeah.
Which may be outdated, right? Like I know I do a lot of like
Aaron
Blizzard
said that
advocacy.
recently, though.
Yeah, but my point is, I went hard to disagree with you guys on this to try to emphasize what their strategy is. Doesn't necessarily mean I think they're doing it right. I'm just saying this is what their strategy is, right? And they have to work within the bounds of what they set out to do. And a lot of mismanagement has happened beyond just this beta, okay? Let's not forget that there's been years of mismanagement that they're trying to now fix within what I think has been about a year.
Mm-hmm. And of course, there's a lot of mismanagement things we could talk about. But one last thing on the beta before we move on is the push game mode. I haven't really mentioned it, but I thought I'd quickly bring up, now that we've actually had an extended amount of time playing the push game mode, do you guys have any thoughts on how it will help Overwatch 2 or maybe hinder Overwatch 2? Do you like it? Do you prefer it? Flats, what's your thoughts on push?
I'm on fire!
It's gonna sound kind of weird. I don't feel strongly about it at all, in any way. I thought it was fine. I was like, yeah, cool. Like I know some people thought it was great. I was like, hey, I like it. New game mode, cool. I know a lot of people were really like hated it. They felt snowbally, and I don't know, maybe because like
said it was worse than 2CP.
J3 said that.
Yeah.
J3 also likes Savannah.
Don't listen to that opinion.
It's scam players.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of players missed 2CP all of a sudden in that, but like, TCP is fundamentally flawed, and I think that's why they were comparing it to push. It's like, I'd rather have this than what we have now, or this push game mode, but I don't know if that speaks to it not being good. I just don't feel strongly about it. I every time I got push, I was like, woo, push, you know, but like every time I got like escort or like hybrid, I was like, yeah, hybrid or escort, you know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe it is something that should be looked at as it didn't give me the same like woo moment of some of the other game modes, so I'm indifferent.
I have strong opinions
you're
on
nodding.
plus
Yeah, go ahead.
and minus. So, but first, to expand on Flat's point, an interesting thing that the devs said early 2016 era of Overwatch 1, when they were like explaining the design of Overwatch 1, was that they intentionally made the objectives simple and easy to understand. Let's just forget how complicated spawns in Assault work. Put that to the side. But like, as far as like what you like, get on the point and capture it. Like, push the payload. Like, this is supposed to be simple. Debatable if it is, but push to me fits in that philosophy that they're going for, where anchoring around that objective point and moving around the map feels very natural, and it's almost like a more simple version in some ways, version of payload, or about the same or something like that. Like, it's very intuitive, I think, to understand we're moving it up. Now there's like little bugbears I have about the mode that I kind of hate, and I guarantee you it's going to take you a while for players to realize this, but the right top level strategy for push is when you gain an advantage to then set up for the fight. So much so that in many, many cases, the old rule of ignoring the objective is more important in Overwatch 2 and all the modes, but especially in push, because the frag advantage is so important. Like, there just isn't really an steal the objective away advantage. Whereas even on like control, which you might think is like a similar deathmatchy variant, in truth, in control, there's a lot of points where maybe you can take a Ryan Sim comp and set up on the point and then cap it away, and then you're gaining progress, blah, blah, blah. Push doesn't work like that. Push is just control the map and then idly get progress. So if you don't control the map first, there's no way to steal the objective away and get progress. And that's counterintuitive to, I think, a lot of players. I also think a lot of players assumed a character like Orisa was good on this mode because everyone just fought on the robot. And then when you do that, she can go kill you. But if you realize the robot's kind of irrelevant for most of the game, then you can take these big flanks that exist and go get the kills first. So then another bugbear is capping on the final point is harder than 2 CP and also kind of irrelevant, because once you have the lead, all you have to do is camp the lead. You don't have to actually complete the map. So that's like competitively issues I have, and I think there's going to be growing pains with the community learning some of these rules. I mean, you'd think if I just say it on this podcast now, everyone would learn and then not make these glaring mistakes. But I guarantee you, in your games, similar to the regroup problem in Assault with randoms, there will be new problems that push you'll be used to that will make it feel impossible to function. But at the very least, in 5v5, everything feels better. And a point I thought of earlier as well, like Owl, for example, said that man advantage in Overwatch 2 generates about 25% more likelihood that the team will win the fight, which is interesting because a lot of us assume that you have more individual agency to carry fights, in theory, and teamwork is less important, blah, blah, blah. But what I will say in Overwatch 2 that I think is maybe lost in that statistic is that exit frags and the feeling of getting meaningful kills late into a fight help the next fight, which is hard to statistically understand. So it's like, you don't want all 5 of them to live on a transition because they'll get more map control. Whereas as an individual, you do have agency to influence at least the regroup stage of the next fight, because you take 2 on the way out, they go to spawn, you go to spawn, and they can't advance on the map enough. So this got really nerdy really quick, I'll admit. I've had these.
No, I love it.
I love that point.
It's
It's
very
actually a
true,
really
though.
good
It's
point.
very, very, very true. And average players don't understand Like that was a
Not at
big
all.
point that I had with Immortality Field. And when I would be like, I didn't get this kill at the end of the fight because of Immortality Field, and somebody would be like, well, who cares? The fight was over. I'm like, no, it's not about this fight. It's about the next one, right? And that's like a very fundamental part of the flow of Overwatch that once you learn, it helps you on every role very, very much.
I wish
It's also how you go ahead.
we get. I wish we. This is something I just remembered. Okay, I just remembered this. I think the entire community might have forgot this. They said there was going to be a way to pick maps in the next game, didn't they?
I think it was.
They almost
brought up.
guaranteed that. I'm pretty sure. I thought Aaron Keller said that, or did Jeff say? We've been covering Overwatch 2 for 10 years now.
It's
So
just-
who knows what's
I can't
changed? But I'm
remember what
almost
Taking
said,
the
what was
cobwebs
said.
out of the library in the brain of Overwatch 2 data over the years. We're trying to figure out what's what, where's where, and I think it was asked. It was definitely asked to them. I'm not sure what the answer was.
Well,
though.
we asked for this for years. I mean, but I think we finally did get a confirmation that there will be a way to curate maps in the game. Whereas, you know, in OWL, there's a big debate over it. For the lead up matches, it's set maps, but in the tournaments, it's loser pick, which is I think fundamentally important. But I think being able to pick your maps. I mean, if we could pick our maps, I feel like Assault could be playable. I don't want to. Okay, no, fine. I don't mean it. I don't mean it. I don't mean. But kind of. A little bit. I kind of miss Assault in some ways. But like, I wish. I wonder how all this will change when you get to pick maps, and I wonder if we're going to be forced somewhat down a lane. Like that system will change how I feel about this in some ways, because I think Overwatch has like game mode redundancy quite a bit now, and I sort of just wish we only played payload maps essentially. Like I would prefer that, because I think all these other ones, it doesn't feel like they add all that much. I know they're in a different setting and somewhat different, but I sort of wish we only had one and that was it. But maybe that's
Oh boy, you
minority
set me off
opinion.
now, Fredo. You set me off now, because like I was literally I had like an hour-long chat with my stream the other day about this very topic, which is something that I know you and I have spoken about, and since I'm the host, I will allow this tangent for myself. And since it is the great May debate, and it's a bit more broad about just discussing what's going on, I will allow this tangent, which is that you and I have spoken as well about how Overwatch doesn't have like a solved mode. Like it doesn't have like this is what Overwatch is, right? You know, I know you always use the example of like, well, CS:GO is the AK-47. Like that's it. You play these objectives. The gun is the gun. That's the stable mode of the game. MOBAs are, it's 3 lanes. You push the bots, the creeps, you kill the towers. That's the game. Overwatch not only has huge diversity in comps that actually affect the game. So obviously you have like a bunker comp that plays one way, a dive comp that plays another way, a brawl comp that plays another way. So the fundamental experience of playing Overwatch is different every time. There's also this objective stuff mixed in, which is that the objectives are different every single time. So when you're playing Control, it's a different, there's a different nuance to how you want to approach the game. And again, if you're bringing a push into the equation now, where it's like, actually ignore the payload entirely and just focus on the fights, not only does it complicate Overwatch for the average player, but it also then muddies the waters for pro level Overwatch, because there's not like, it's a lot less stable what you need to fix, right? The variables are bigger. If the objectives are bigger or the objective types are bigger, then the meta also becomes a bit more variable. Now, of course, map diversity is good, but again, my ramble is that I do wonder if in the long term, there should be like a solved competitive game mode, because it would make things more straightforward to figure out, as opposed to these kind of like lotteries almost, in a way where you're like, this game mode is like this game mode is like that.
I think there's one more coming as well that they haven't
they've
shown
said
us at all.
They've said they have others in the work. And again, it's like you can't even deviate. This is the problem. You can't deviate too heavily from the current modes, because then you can't have a comp mode that's like capture the flag, because it's like a completely different thing. And now you're trying to have someone's SR based off of their ability to play capture the flag and previously 2CP or payload. So it's like,
yeah, that's a very interesting point as well. Like, and that goes to how in ranked curating the maps. So like, for example, in CS:GO, it's so tactical on how you take a map. It's like you might only play one, and you're allowed to queue for one map if you want. You can queue for multiple to get your queue time lower, but you can queue for a map and get your entire rank based on just being an expert on that map. And then you go to a different, and then maybe you queue for a different map and you have no idea the angles, lineups, and everything, and you might get slaughtered. So that would be the case with Overwatch as well. If you say got to only select a more deathmatchy mode like push, and then maybe the hybrids, let's say in our game, maybe are a bit more tactical. I think maybe a little bit, or at least like the biggest divergence in gameplay, I think, so far in the beta, remembering, of course, they have more maps they haven't shown us and more maps from Overwatch 1 that weren't in there, I believe. Casino Royale is like the meta-defining mode where even on one patch, you saw very different heroes get played from all the rest of the maps because it has the least flanks and the most sniper lanes that are relevant. So yeah, map pool matters a lot. I don't know if I have made a point. I feel like I'm hogging airtime for no reason now, so I will trail off.
We were just kind of rambling about the whole game mode, solving it. Flats, Samito, do you guys have any thoughts?
I wish we had a single life mode personally, but I'm never gonna get that.
S&D, no. Good luck with that. I think that over time, push will be improved. I think it certainly has things that it can get worked on. I mean, if you look at any of the map types, there used to not be ticks on the hybrid and 2CP maps, like, right, and that helped a ton, right? I think push is definitely going to need some stuff like that. It is very snowbally, right? That's almost no point in capturing the last objective. So I think that there are ways that that they can improve that over time, and I think that we're going to see it as well. I think the biggest hot take, believe it or not, is I wonder if 2CP would be as fundamentally flawed in 5v5 as it would be in 6v6. I'm not sure. I mean, I personally think it could be worth exploring. But as for now, I think we should just focus on what's ahead of us. I mean, I think push is. I'm kind of with flats. Like it's a good game type. It's what it needs to be. Nothing crazy, nothing bad. It's there. It's good to play, and I'm looking forward to playing more of it.
What if this is their master plan?
The objective being out of the way. Oh yeah, sorry.
You go.
I was just to Sam's point because I assume yours is a different. Branching us out. The objective being out of the way of the hero shooter gameplay is probably a good thing ultimately, and that's kind of what I was trying to say at the start. And what Flats was getting to. It's like not having a strong opinion about the mode is probably good because then you get to play the heroes, which is
I mean,
point of the
winning
game.
Fights wins you games. Period. All like you did this. The consistent theme in every single game type, no matter what it is you need to find the most effective plays to set up and win the fight. And somehow, some way, 6 freaking years later, even in Grandmaster, you tell me how people still don't know how to set up on Volskaya Industry First Defense. No matter what game type you have, right? It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It's been 6 years. It's like
I remember like a month ago I played Volskaya in like Diamond and I was picking Monkey and someone in chat in my team was like, never seen Monkey on this map. Legit just flamed me. It was like, never seen Monkey on this map. And I had Boger in my chat and he was like, bro, this dude is off the fucking
You can play
sauce.
Monkey
Like,
crazy on first. Like what?
He's like, Boger said this is my favorite Monkey map.
Meanwhile, Reinhardt's sitting on the point shielding. Oh, I'm dying from all
he's
the
in
high
front of the
grounds
truck.
around me. Where's my team? Like,
In front of the truck at the choke, even better.
Yeah, legit.
It's just
what I was
truly...
gonna say though, what if this is their master plan? What if their master plan is just to take 2CP out rather than be like, because they've tried so many ways to fix it. They were just like, let's take it out, and then everyone will miss it because they all have this like, because we have the rose-tinted glasses on goats, right? People are like, bring back goats. Their master plan is just take it out for a bit, and in a month they'll miss it, and we brand it as new content, throw it back in.
It's good. That's good business right there, honestly. Like little, I've always wanted this for a while. How cool would it be for I would say like TNQ weekend only tournaments when Overwatch 2 comes out of like classic metas and be like, hey, leaderboard for this 1 weekend only. Get your clan squad together. If they do clans, go for it. I wouldn't mind it. Listen,
right, Sam,
those break hours.
I'm with you. They just need to do this. Now that it's a point I agree with, then it has to be included. Yeah. Sorry, it's a great idea. I just wanted to flip-flop on my stance.
I want my brig hours to be something. Okay, a little flail, little goats, a little bit. It'd be pretty fun. I do think that's not, and that's, I feel like that would be just a consistent way to keep things fresh. But that's like icing on the cake, and we're still baking the cake. So let's bake the cake. Baby.
Such a cool idea.
Be fun.
Let's bake the cake. And on that note, let's bring it back now to where we are currently. Back to Overwatch 1. Remix event is, I suppose, what the nicest thing we've got. I mean, how does everyone feel about Overwatch 1?
Is
it even worth
appreciated
spending too much time and energy on Overwatch 1, or is it just one of those things where it's like, I guess we're here for a month and then we'll find out later? Like, because we'll talk about what's coming later, but in this in-between period, does it matter? Does it not matter? Do you care? Do you not care? Flats, you go first. I'm going to quickly go to the bathroom, and I hope you don't say anything too, like, mic droppy so I don't miss it. But go ahead.
Overwatch 1's, but no.
Damn, that would be a hot take.
Well, I mean, it's way worse. Like it's just terrible. It's actually awful. I think that first game I played, the literal first game I played, I went, wow, this is bad. This is awful. You know what I got? I got Lijiang Tower, Control Center. The best. I couldn't ask for a better map. I still went, wow, that was awful. That was terrible. Not being able to cancel pin, not having 2 fire strikes, so you only have 1, so your uptime in fights is so much lower. Never mind the fact that like it's still like kind of poke meta, so it kind of feels like Overwatch 2 as like a tank player, but without any of the abilities to actually do anything. So you're basically playing Overwatch 2, but with more damage, more poke, and you don't have your tools. So it's just like you're over there like you're trying to build a house and you forgot your whole tool set. You've got nails and you're trying to punch them in the walls. Like you're not gonna get anything done. You're gonna hate it. And so I will say though, I've actually enjoyed myself the last 2 days. Why have I enjoyed myself? Well, I would say a big part is having ranked again, being able to have a competitive environment. People care, you know. I've already had a few games where people are just annoyed and they're just complaining about everything under the sun. I'm like, you know what? I would rather people could complain, even if they're complaining about something stupid, than mindless games for 5 hours. Mindless games, you know what I mean? Like, I stream for a very long time, right? Like, I think it's an open secret at this point that if you stream on Twitch for long periods of time, your stream grows. Because the longer you stream, the more view count you have, the higher view count you have, the higher the directory you are, the more your stream grows. It's more advantageous to do it. That's why for a long time XQC used to do the 10 to 20 hour long, 24 hour long streams, 28 hour long streams, and just flew through the ranks until he was dominating the top, and then just stayed up there until he was 20k, and he just kept doing it. Still does it to this day. Here's the thing. Overwatch 1 feels so slow compared to Overwatch 2. It's slow. It feels kind of smooth, but it's clunky at the same time, right? Like the characters, like the way the engine feels is pretty smooth, but what the characters do, clunky. It just from being able to have like almost constant uptime to having no uptime, you can feel the difference. But to bring it all back, I will say, I think the reason I've enjoyed Overwatch 1 more than Overwatch 2 is not only just the ranked mode, but it's a more personal problem. As a streamer and a YouTuber, I did not have fun in the beta a lot of times. Unless SVB was making some voodoo magic with some custom games, I want to be able to queue game after game after game after game after game after game and go fast. So either we had to wait long times in customs, waiting for like you have to wait for your next turn to play, or wait for something to happen. Like chat gets bored. Like I can always sit here and put stuff on for so long without like just watching videos aimlessly, which I don't like doing too often. Or I play quick play and I've got Pickle Pete that I go in and kill 3, and they sit there and they bag me for 2 minutes. They're still there by the time I come back from spawn. They're typing the whole time. I actually ended up having a keybind to hide chat. I've never done it before. As bad as Overwatch is with like censoring things that it should and it doesn't, I've never had to make a keybind to close my chat immediately. Never had to do that before. I saw more dog shit in the Overwatch 2 beta than I've ever seen in my career of Overwatch 1. First off, I just want to say this right now, because this has been a history in the past of like, you know, the checklist of things. I don't know how much work it takes, but the general chat on Overwatch, like the main menu screen, why is that still a thing? Get rid of it. Just throw it the fuck out. I don't know how much work it takes to do, but just turn it off. I think it was very obvious that it caused a lot of problems, like, and I'm not going to give it any attention, but it caused problems for people. Just turn it off. I don't know why it's a thing. Next up, streamer mode. I think you're going to see that problem in Overwatch 2. If Overwatch 2 goes to the moon and has a great time, guess what? You're not going to have your XQCs, your Tims, and you know, these big players play that often if they're just getting hardcore sniped all the time. At least in the GM area, in the high top 500 GM, you have a buffer. You have to be good, right? That barrier is so strong. Like, because you don't really want to, you don't end up fucking with people that much. You know what I mean? Because like you have to see them tomorrow. You know, it's like your coworkers a lot of times. Like, yeah, there's those people that are kind of annoying. You know what I mean? But you kind of learn how to deal with the people that are kind of annoying. You don't like hard flame them every game because it's just not fun for anybody. You know what I mean? In the quick play games and the open beta, or not the beta, open beta, the Overwatch 2 beta, I would say it was one of the most disingenuous things to deal with. As just like every game, you had somebody that was just like constantly chasing you around the map. Like if I wanted to play support or DPS, I had people that would literally come to spawn and like wait for me, and I'd still kill them a lot of times. But even if they got me, then they come to chat after, and they're like, "Oh, I'm a huge fan," following for about 26 seconds. And I check later, and they have 9 different clips because they wanted to clip it exactly, like so it's perfect that they look like as good as possible. I'm like, dude, like over time, the week beta was only a couple weeks. If I had to deal with that for years, I probably wouldn't play the game that much. Facts.
Welcome to the streamer game, Flats. Welcome. It doesn't go away.
I don't have to deal with that. I don't play quick play.
As someone who wasn't in the GM bracket for the longest time in the last 2 years, this is why I didn't play on my main account for like 2 years. Because it was just like real SVB, and then the same thing where they come into your chat afterwards, they drop the N bomb, then they clip it, they're like F you SVB, you N word, like just like all that shit. But anyways, it's kind of like that's our first world problems. But yeah, we've been over streamer mode.
Streamer mode helps everybody, by the way. Like everyone.
It does help everybody
because
because you should be able to just play any game and not have to worry about because it helps people who are targeted, minority groups, people who don't want their name to give away a certain thing. Like
I know you've talked about this before. Like people, like if you have like a girl's name as your tag, you are much more likely to get like harassment. Like you shouldn't have to change your battle tag so you don't get harassed. Like streamer mode, like I know we've been kicking this can down the road for years, and we keep the answer is always the same. It's like we have a million things we're working on. Where on the list of priorities does this fall? At some point, this list has gotten so long. There's no way it hasn't gotten to the top at some point. People are skipping the line. Where this isn't a queue anymore. This is like the cafeteria, and you're at the end, and everyone knows each other, and you're the new kid, and everyone jumps in with their friends, and you're gonna end up being not last, even though you got there within 10 minutes. You're our dead last because everyone's cutting in line. Please, at some point. I'm not even gonna complain anymore. But come on, man.
Question. Is this more so? Is this like more of like an Overwatch 1 complaint for you, or like an Overwatch 2, or just like kind of in general? Like where do you see that being worse? Was it quick play Overwatch 2?
Well, I mean, it was the first real taste of it in Overwatch 2, and I think a lot of people got that taste in Overwatch 2. You know what I mean? Because like in Overwatch 1, it's still a problem. It absolutely is still a problem, but many people, myself included, don't see it that often. And a lot of the old streamers probably that don't see it that often as either, because the GM barrier is still there, right? But if you want to talk about, going past that, if there are people that come back or want to get into the game and they're not immediately GM players, they're not going to have a good time. You know what I mean? Like,
and here's also where it helps people who aren't streamers, where it's like, we have many accounts, most of us, right? I'm sure all of us do. We have many accounts, or we don't mind paying for a name change. I know, Freedo, you changed your name and you found a significantly better playing experience as well. But it's like, for the average player, they maybe can't afford a name change or don't have another account, and they never get to experience the other side of things. Like, they don't get to experience what it's like when they play on that alt account where you're not getting your games tossed. So if you're someone who's like, again, has a female sounding name, or a name that implies your race or your sexual orientation, anything like that, like, you may just always feel like Overwatch is being played in one way, or you experience Overwatch one way, not realizing that maybe people are actually doing something because of what your name sounds like, or maybe what your voice sounds like, right? Stuff like this. So anyways, streamer mode, 100% necessary. Now, I want to bring us back to Overwatch 1, because that's what the discussion was. And I want to take it to Freedo. Because Freedo, you kind of, Flats has said he's kind of enjoying Overwatch 1 again. And Flats, Sam, and I are kind of in one way where we grind on Twitch, or Flat streams, or Sam streams on YouTube. But we're like comp andies, and we play a lot of comp. You, I feel, have lost the patience, the desire to play a lot of Overwatch 1. What's your kind of state right now when we're heading back?
I am waiting like a kid getting ready for Christmas. Like, it's like a couple months away, or whatever it's going to be, and I keep dropping hints on things I want. It's like, man, tournament mode. That would really make my
circling
Christmas
in the
day
magazine
great.
like 100 times.
Yeah, just leave it out on the counter for Aaron. Like, here it is.
Open on that
Here's
page.
yeah.
I'm just
Make
looking-
sure push stuff out of the way that normally is there on the table. Like, vacate it so it's just empty on the. Okay, that kind of stuff. That's how I feel about it. I think a lot of times, I have the luxury because I don't stream to set Overwatch down the way that I think the devs kind of intended the game to be. Like I think they really, for a long time, under the old business model, and we didn't mention this at all, but that there was that leak about Jeff's management. We're not entirely sure how true that was, but with the old, what definitely seemed true anyway, is that they were okay with you picking up the game at your own pace, and there wasn't this sense of urgency towards the competitive, let's say, like always on live service. Things are happening now, like that mentality, and that's sort of the shift we're attempting to take to bring Overwatch closer to the way other live service games are treated. So I guess I have to go back to that, like waiting for the next thing. Like that announcement hit me like a truck, where I'm like, oh great, the next thing's gonna be announced. It's June 16th. Hold on, what day is it? I had to go to the calendar. I'm like, this is May and that's June. That's a whole month for the announcement. You're killing me here, dude. Like, so
You're killing me, Smalls.
the some of the decisions I can understand, because it's like, no ranked. There's a lot of talk about like, man, I want good queue times and I want a ranked mode in the beta that's limited. Just, you can't have everything at once, right? If there was a ranked mode in the beta as it was, the queues would be like an hour, right? To keep the bad players away from the good players, then there's only so many of you. you forget that. It takes time for that to build up. And looking at Overwatch 1, I ain't waiting in queues to play 6v6. Let's just put it that way. And I think a lot of players are like that. But anyway, I certainly hope that with this announcement and the next beta, not only do we get more content, but at some point we stop treating Overwatch like you can put it down and just tune in when the new skins come out type game. Because that's not how competitive games work. Maybe that's how your game was designed to be attempted to work, because that's how you viewed the content model. But as competitive gamers, that's not what we want. Like, we want Valorant, CSGO, like that, where, yeah, the skins are great when they come, but we need to be able to play competitively day in and day out. So to that degree, I am on board, obviously, with the competitive grind and needing that incentive. But the sooner we get to that, and the new systems and rolling with the philosophy of what that direction truly means, the better. And that's what I'm hoping with this next announcement, really. So my answer is I'm waiting. Like, there's nothing to do now.
Can I have a hot take for you,
now.
Freedo?
Yeah,
I'm 100% on board with you on that. I think this is the hot take. I think the casuals will always be there if your game is good, no matter what. As long as the content's there, they will always be there. And strengthening that competitive core community is huge. You see it in Apex. I don't know if you've seen recently. They had their first LAN, apparently, in forever, and it was a huge success. And they've also been having watch parties on Twitch for their ALGS. Just like kind of like how Valorant did, but actually more inclusive. There was way more streamers doing it. And you had not only big streamers playing in the tournaments, but big streamers watching the tournaments. And it was super hype. And they had a lot of success with it, and I'm sure their league side is probably very happy with it. I would love to do more stuff like that with Overwatch. Like, I know YouTube's a big problem, but strengthening that competitive core, the larger that gets, that casual sphere should increase as well.
Obviously we agree. I think where we align more is the timing of when they physically could do that. So I'll be as angry as you guys are if the next beta, if we're going to wait months potentially, like 1 month for the announcement. So who knows how long beta 2 is released.
4 gifties.
If there isn't
Thank you, dude.
things that do all those things you just said, then I will be like, okay, like I understand. Oh, tech beta, we're testing things out and we're trialing 5v5. Okay, I can be with you with that for beta 1, but beta 2 better feel like, all right, this is Overwatch 1.5 now instead of Overwatch 1.1. Okay, like it better feel like that, at least. I think is safe to say. Otherwise, yeah, you prioritize something wrong. I feel because are we on like maybe we'll know this by the announcement, but these are answers I need to have. Like, if there's going to be 3 betas, is there going to be, or like I'm guessing just based on the timeline, is there going to be a month plus break between each? Because that means we're on this road longer too. Like you know what I mean? Like, and I don't. That's
6 month
that's
long
not
road.
cool. Is that 6?
No.
Yeah. Is it about 6 months? That's gonna suck. But if we know the launch, like, do they say actually PvE is gonna come out this year or next year? Like, we need real announcements in this timeline. Let's put it that way. Like, are we in a when do we approach Overwatch 2 is my point. When do we feel like it's done and complete? Do you have an aiming point in mind that is reasonable to set out where we're out of this beta phase? Should that take like a year, 2 years? Like, I'm
It's
on
gotta
board
be June,
with the
right? It's gotta be.
because at the moment we're getting it piecemeal, but we've heard nothing on PvE, which is what is going to get everyone excited to be like, that's the new thing. Because the PvP, we don't want it too new. Like us in this call, I assume. We like 5v5, we want competitive balancing, but we don't want it to be reinvented to be a different game. We like the game. We just want ranked mode and tournaments and all those other things we want, right? So that's what I need to know, especially if there's going to be these gaps of time where we can't even play the half of a thing we were getting for now. Okay, I'm driving myself crazy just thinking about this, but yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean we broached the topic now, and I was gonna push it towards the end, but we're in deep now. What I've been noticing is that there's been a lot of like eye emojis from the people who I think would be in the know in response to the announcement itself. Like, I won't name them because I don't want them to get in trouble, but I follow some devs and stuff, and there was a lot of chatter amongst them about like, you really want to be watching this announcement, like beyond the regular whole something's coming. I noticed quite a few people like, this is one that you're going to want to pay attention to. And I've been trying to do, usually this is your role, Freedo, but I was doing the soothsaying, the sort of reading the fine print, every single word, breaking it down. And I noticed that they said something along the lines of, we're going to discuss the future of Overwatch, like something like that. They didn't say we're going to discuss the future betas, right? They didn't say, because that would have been what you would expect. They would say, we're going to discuss the future betas and the timeline of the future betas. They said,
I believe in the tweet, right? It was, we'll discuss the future of Overwatch and the PvP.
No, I mean the
beta.
article thing. They said, like, we're going to discuss in the full article. They were just like, we're going to discuss the future of Overwatch. And I was like, why say that? Why say the future of Overwatch? And yeah, well, let's pull it up. Maybe we should pull it up. If someone gets a link, Freedo, if you find
is this
that
where we
link,
start to get a better idea of what their plan is?
This is what I'm
Reddit and
wondering,
SVB's following, like, got the goggles out, like, you know.
Well, this tweet was what I was talking about, but you seem to. Is there?
There was a blog post as well about.
I might have totally missed that.
Yeah. There was a
SVB,
blog post.
Put the top hat back on. Sherlock Holmes in the house. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, we're gonna get because this is where my English literature degree comes in handy. Because I was saying this to my chat, like, every word deliberate, whether conscious or subconscious. So the choice of every word is interesting because the person writing the article knows what knows what something we don't know. And maybe we're reading too much into it. But when Freedo finally finds that article, I want to read the part that says. Basically, my TLDR of it is I think that it might be more than just the announcement of when the next beta is. Here we go. Freedo's got it. I want to quickly.
We talking release? We talking business model? I wonder, because that's big. That's a big
see, look
implication.
So we can't wait to share Emoji Wars comes next. Okay, I'm gonna have to. You guys talk. I'm gonna quickly skim.
I mean, if that is
Sam, what do you think?
On what?
Just watch this announcement. Do you think with this announcement, like?
I mean, I think first of all, I'd expect things quarterly. Given they're a publicly traded company, they have to report quarterly. I think that they would like to have some kind of good news for investors and shareholders every quarter. So I would expect, if I had to guess, probably something playable in June if the announcement is May, based on precedent, based on their previous hero release cycle, saying that we expect to support something like that. Like, if you go based off precedent, based on how they have to report, that would be what I expect.
I think maybe a week or two after that announcement is probably, that's usually the amount of gap they like to do with the big things coming, and it's coming like that. They've done that before.
Yeah.
Should we
So
read what Aaron
here's-
has to say? Is that what you're focusing
No,
on?
no.
SP?
So here's the sentence. The last sentence says, "Thank you again for being a part of the Overwatch 2 PvP beta. We will be back with more information on how to gain access to the next phase of Overwatch 2 testing." Why not just say the next phase of the beta? Why not just say we're going to talk more about how to get into the next beta? Why say the next phase of Overwatch 2 testing?
Well, the tweet was a little different.
My tinfoil hat is that means that there's more than just a beta that they're going to talk about how we get access to. That's my tinfoil hat theory, that this might be a hint to the PvE testing, if there is like a testing
think you're
period
right.
for us to test it.
I feel like they'd probably so let's assume let's look back at the calendar, right? 2019 to 2020, because we played the first PvE mission a while ago. There's no way they don't have some kind of PvE mission done of some capacity, right? We saw Sojourn in the trailers years ago around the watch point desk. Like, when's the last cinematic we had, right? I mean, again, we could be. I feel like at this point, 2 years ago, we were kind of on the copium, meaning like, well, we could get a cinematic, we could get this, we could get that. But look, we are long past that point, long past that point, right? So I feel like it's very fair to assume, hey, what's happened in the Overwatch story? Sojourn's back. Where did the story leave off? We saw I believe it was in Paris.
They did show that they have that working, by the way. They're working on the cinematic. That has already been announced. Because normally when they release a hero, it does come with a cinematic. And instead of that, the video on the Play Overwatch YouTube, I believe, was like, it's in the works. This is the bones of it. So yes, that is definitely coming. I think maybe your point might be the scale of this. Like, have they been locked and loaded with more than what we already know?
And is this just? I feel like they've got their multi-year plan ready, and at this point, I think that they're starting. We finished our first PvP test beta. We are now confident that 5v5 does not ruin this game. It actually improved the game in certain capacities. Obviously, there's trade-offs here and there, but overall, it's still Overwatch and sports playable. We can move forward with this and have the game be successful. They've got that kind of elephant in the room out of the way.
Appreciated.
All right, let's get back on our content schedule, because I think that wording is important. I think this is probably because everyone's asking, and if the games and the average consumer's main concern is, okay, well, this is the same game. Well, it's time we show you something that's different. Maybe they come out with the PvE stuff, something. I would be surprised if we didn't see anything about that. I think that would fit in the release of the content schedule. But real quick, I want to ask you guys, if you had to guess right now when Overwatch 2 came out, they just shot in the dark, what would you guess?
By Overwatch 2, though, you mean the PvP?
The game, the release, like Overwatch 2 is out. Launch. This game is out. We are launching today. What would you guess?
I don't think they're going to be together. I think PvE and PvP are not.
I agree.
Same time.
I think what Sam means when they're going to officially say Overwatch 2 is now out. It's not.
It's Overwatch. Like Overwatch 1 ceases to exist. This is not more like this. It was the past. Like completely in the past. There's nothing Overwatch 1 left. We are Overwatch 2. 100%.
Well, again, that's confusing because there's a PvE and there's a PvE.
Like the PvE. If we even can't figure this out, how the hell is average consumer supposed to figure this out? But no, I'm saying like PvE out. PvP and PvE out. Like it is
the full
like,
game.
No
more beta.
No more betas. Overwatch 2. Like the whole Overwatch 1 branding goes away. Like this is Overwatch 2.
Well, the reason why that's confusing is because that is going to happen early with just PvP. So that's
like the whole package, though. I'm not saying.
But yes,
just
as far as yes, I know that. I just mean their terminology is confusing inherently. So making definitions on these is impossible. But I think that could be no earlier than next year, because if they're still doing betas for this, it depends. Like if in this time they've had reasonable progress on the PvE, but just like missed the timeline. I don't think that's the case. I think they had what I think we know is that they didn't have enough devs, scrambled to get more. Oh wait, we mismanaged this so badly we can't even maintain the first game. Shut that off. Oh, we have to scrap whatever ideas we had for the PvP again. Here's our solution: 5v5 content plan. Boom. Need a rush for Owl. That was last year. And now we're in the beta phasing of for the next X amount of months, whatever it's going to be. And it's already May. So it's like this year's basically over as far as I'm concerned. So PvE, the complete Overwatch 2 package, all new things, fully released, nothing in beta. Maybe earliest could be next year, would be my guess with all that. Will there be a PvE beta at some point? I think it makes sense, but they also don't want to burn that content and just like give it to you for free, because that I do think is paid. The thing that everybody forgets is that the Overwatch 2.0 PvP Electric Boogaloo is free to if you already own Overwatch 1, because that was, but no one gives them credit for that or anything. Like, we just forget. It's like the beta is free anyway. I just watch Twitch and get it. It's free. See, but you needed it's super complicated and a lot of hoops.
Way
to jump
more
through to understand the value of it. Go ahead, Flats.
Yeah, again, the messaging is just not clear. Yeah, go ahead, Flats.
I mean, I now that you've said what you said, I wonder if that's what June is, to finally clear that up, because we can't figure it out. How the hell is someone that's like a Valorant player gonna figure it out? They're not. So I don't know. I think you know what? I'm willing to put the tinfoil hat on as well. I bet that's kind of what June is. I bet it's finally time to start clearing it up.
Get those fedoras on,
the
fellas.
tweet had slightly different language. I think SV's probably on a point. Like, it could be a play for them to piecemeal out a tiny bit of the PvE just to get control of the public messaging. That might be worth it, because there's a trade-off there, because they don't want to give you the game for free, because I think they are going to sell the campaign. So they got to figure out a way to like make it feel Overwatch 2-y. Like, they got to get Donkey on board, but not give you the whole thing for free, and then they don't have sales later. Like that, they don't want that to happen. But I wanted to read what the tweet was, because it was slightly different, the tweet from the blog post. They said, "Save the date for an Overwatch 2 event on June 16th, where we will share our plan for the months ahead, including the next PvP beta." So that doesn't refute the idea that it's more than that, but it at least is that, right? It which we would expect,
again,
obviously.
Note that it says including the PvP beta, as in suggesting that there's more outside of the PvP beta. Now, the other possibility could just be that it's like they're expanding it to console or something, right? Because they would see that as a big leap forwards as well. If now console players
Xbox retweeted it, by the way. This tweet.
Ooh.
Yeah,
The conspiracies expand.
Something. Like,
Something's going on.
Like, these
speaking of eye emojis.
Yeah. This is. I think it's. Imagine, just imagine for a second. This would never happen.
Sam's going off.
This would never happen.
I'm hooked in. Come on, Sam.
Imagine they tweet out Xbox exclusive, and Sony's just like,
oh my goodness! Can you imagine?
No. There's a legitimate chance. I doubt it.
No.
There's a legitimate. No. Wait.
Zero.
Hear me out. There's a legitimate chance that the PvE expansion is Microsoft exclusive.
No.
I believe it.
No.
I believe it's possible. Listen, they're doing it with Bethesda.
Because Sam might be the prophet.
Okay, Sam's gone too far. We gotta cut him
I don't
loose.
think they should do it. To be clear, I don't think
0%.
they should do it. I don't think they should. But like,
Honestly,
they wrote a $70 billion check.
It's not against some of their business practices, like, for example, signing the exclusivity deals with Twitch and then YouTube for the league. It's like, I think business-wise, it's sort of the type of deal that Blizzard Activision tend to make, isn't it?
Or Game Pass only. I think that's more likely. Game Pass only.
Well, it wouldn't be Game Pass
just
only,
for that one day of
you could buy it, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't think it'll happen, but like, it's definitely been discussed at Microsoft. There's no way it hasn't. There's no way.
I think they have made public statements that they don't plan on making any
multiplayers.
To rob it from anyone. So, but that was the multiplayer, as you said.
It's multiplayer, PvE.
Which is
They
competitive.
had this conversation. Like,
No. It's just no.
It's fair to ask the question.
Like, please no.
I don't want it to happen. Again, to be clear, I think the more open it is, that's my whole thing, is the better. But like, it's been discussed. There's no way. There's no way.
It would be just hilarious for that one day. I imagine there's a dev or someone in the know watching who's probably laughing their head off at how deep our conspiracies are going about like eye emoji tweets. And we're just like running rampant.
You give us an inch, we take a mile. It's
true. We got nothing else. This is how we spend our time now as Overwatch creators.
Yeah.
What is your answer for when you think the Overwatch 2 will release, Sam? Do you have an idea? Or
I think the earliest would be fall 23. I think the most important thing has not happened yet in whether or not the government approves the Microsoft acquisition of ATVI as a whole. Because if that gets approved and Microsoft can obviously they're not going to give them a dev team if they can't buy the company, right? But I think if they can get resources in there, and I think surely, look, let's not pretend. Everybody knows the scope of what Overwatch achieved as a game, even with its completely flawed business model. A lot of the things that it botched, like this game holds a very special place in the industry in terms of moving it forward. Overwatch was like in a very weird spot when it came out, in that it was the last game of the previous generation of gaming, and it helped catapult gaming to be more mainstream. I don't think PUBG would have happened the way it did if Overwatch was more popular. I don't think Fortnite would have happened the way it did if they didn't take things from Overwatch. I mean, you go play Borderlands 3, there's Easter eggs of Overwatch in the game. There's like a Roadhog boss that you can fight and farm. Like, Overwatch was one of the most influential games of its era, right? And it didn't even have the setup that modern games have. Imagine you give it the fuel tank that Microsoft can give it. They're licking their chops, looking at all the IPs that ATVI has, that they can be like, yo, we can catapult this, right? So if they get their hands on it, I'm saying earliest fall of 23, but I think best case scenario is the 7-year anniversary in 24 for like everything out. I think the latest that we see it would be spring of 24, where you get like some crazy stuff, but I think that would be the absolute latest. My guess is ballpark like fall of 23.
That's pretty late. I think I can only see people in chat being like, "No shot, please, no."
I mean, we'll have
shot,
PvP.
23."
We'll have PvP way before then. But like I'm saying, like everything, like PvE, like the story game, and we're back on like the live update cycle. I would say like maybe spring of 23 next year. Probably we'll definitely have like a lot of PvP stuff.
The other thing that complicates this is if they have any intentions of ever BlizzConning again. Because one thing that often coincides with these things is BlizzCon, at least an announcement or something, right? But they're not going to, well, they said they're rethinking BlizzCon. The BlizzCon online was in February, but normal BlizzCon is like November. So like either those two dates could be like a time for some serious announcement, but are they ever even going to make a BlizzCon again?
Oh, I love this topic actually, but I think we're nearing the end of the show. So I don't want to go on too long.
You can segue on it quickly before I get to because we're going to get to conclusion soon anyways.
I think Blizzard would probably be smart to kill BlizzCon. I love BlizzCon, but so much of it has been tainted over these years, in so many ways, where like they get in trouble with PR, then they rush an announcement, or they promise too much and then underdeliver. Like it just, I've been watching some content recently on like the history of Blizzard and how they treat other games. A cool thing, side tangent, that you can do with like as a Blizzard fan is watch content from someone in like World of Warcraft or something, a game I've never played, and see their perspective of Blizzard. And it's always funny to me because it's always the same problems. It's just a different game. It's like it's the same Blizzard, different game. But BlizzCon was such a magical thing when it started, and then I think now it just has the reputation of being kind of BS in some ways, where for all the things I just said, right? And it almost seems like it's more risk for them than worth, because as I understand it, it's not like it's a money generating enterprise. That's why they felt they had the need to keep milking the attendees, because it doesn't, it's a marketing piece. But if they can just do it online and make an announcement like every other dev does, it's like, why not do that? And it's sad to see it go if it does, because it was like the one that existed. It's like we were used to all the other companies having their own convention now, but it used to be they would all go to E3. And BlizzCon was because Blizzard was just so important. But now the relationship we all have with Blizzard is much different. We're all older. The man children like me who grew up with them are jaded and angry with them for so many reasons. They're not the hot thing for the kids either. So it's like going to BlizzCon is a different experience now, I think. Now, because how do you get up and say all of the things they normally say, which is like, oh, we believe in equality for all people. How do you say any of this to these people who know who you are now, or what you were, or whatever, however we want to say it, right? With all the turmoil they've been through and how many mistakes they've made, it might just be done, is my point. And I'm sad to see it go, but I'm watching with a keen eye to see what their like PR strategy is now, because with Overwatch we know what it is. It's oops, my bad, let me try to fix it. For big change from we've never made a mistake, everything is intentional. Like that's what it used to be during all the Overwatch 1 era. Now they're doing that with Overwatch too. But with the company wide, right? It's like these other games aren't always so happy with things going on, and I almost feel like it would be a benefit to them to just do BlizzCon online now from now on, because then at least you're not on stage with people to react to the things you say. Because that you're just like asking for one of these poor devs who Bobby Kotick forced them to do some BS like Diablo Immortal or something. And it's like, I can't tell you about Diablo 4. I have to tell you about the mobile game we're making. Like, it's sad to see these devs have to go out there and shill for these things when BlizzCon used to be like a celebration of the community that plays the games. Whereas now it's just like another, okay, fine. I don't know if I'm talking in circles making any points, but
No,
hopefully
really
there's
not.
something in that
Fascinating.
salad.
Believe it or not,
Really
I
fascinating.
don't think that Blizzard started this precedent. Sony pulling out of E3 started it, and I think that you're going to see a lot of other companies realize that for in terms of cost and everything, it's just not worth it, and it's much better to do it on their own time.
And streaming is so much bigger now. Like streaming wasn't a thing. How many years has Twitch been like a sizable thing? Like BlizzCon's way older than Twitch being a mainstream thing for everyone or everything anyway. Maybe my history's wrong on that, but I think so anyway. So anyway,
Well, it's also like now you can just send like a footage to the Game Awards or whatever, rather than turn up at E3. You just send like a 5-minute promo piece on Game Awards, and everyone's watching that, and they get their little, oh, that's cool, I'll check that out. Right, so yeah, it would be a shame. I've never been to BlizzCon. I was longed to go one day, so it'd be really sad if there's never a chance. But
Same.
I'll catch you guys at a World Cup or something. I don't know. Okay, so now it's been a lengthy discussion as always, and I appreciate you guys' time. So let's head to the final conclusory thoughts. Now, putting my tinfoil hat theory aside of maybe the next beta announcement is bigger than just the beta, what do we want? So hopes / expectations, next beta, or perhaps just the next, 2 months or whatever it is. What do we want from that next piece? I'm going to take it to Samito first.
I want to see us get competitive with the rest of the industry again. I think we took the first steps to doing that in this previous beta, and that was great. Obviously, I want to see some new support changes. I don't necessarily want a new competitive mode. I want a competitive mode. I want it to be open to all consumers. Like, let's open up the shop. Like, let's get people window shopping. Like, hey, remind them, hey, we're here, right? We're here. We're here to do business. We're open. We've adapted to what our competitors have really revolutionized. To Blizzard's credit, it's very difficult to change to radical industry changes, especially when you're a big corporation, right? And it's almost as if Fortnite stumbled onto it, and then it just blew open the floodgates, right? So it's not like this is just a Blizzard exclusive problem. Many other companies have had to suffer because of this. But I really just want to see us get competitive again. I want to see content come out. I want to see the storyline get explored a little bit more. And the most important thing is I'm a big believer in that the art and the creative things that a person creates transcends the person that made it. And I think that Overwatch as an IP belongs to the world. It belongs to all of the consumers. And I think the story that we'll have the opportunity to tell will be able to reach more people of any background, any place, anywhere, and give us something really, really awesome to cling on to and have one hell of a narrative by the time that it's done. So that's all I'm really hoping for. I want us to get competitive. I want to hear more about the story, and I like the path that we're heading on. Granted, like there are definitely things that, I would have liked to have seen done differently, but overall, I think it's very, very positive. So I'd like to make that clear about, at least my personal stance here. It's like, you'll hear us talk about issues all the time, but that's more so because, at least in my case, like I'm a perfectionist. Like I want it to be perfect, even though I know perfect doesn't exist. Overall, it's been very, very positive. I'm very happy to see the progress that they've made. And walk, crawl, run, Freedo. Walk, crawl, run. I think we're gonna see maybe jog.
Crawl,
maybe
walk, run. Yeah.
I'd like a little jog, a little warm up jog. Like we've been planning for the big meet, right? I want to see a little jog, warm up, or the morning of now, like getting loose. And I'd like to see them get a little loose with this and make it happen.
Make it happen. All right, Flats. What do you want? Hopes / expectations.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm much more in the sit back and watch role at this point. There's a lot of things I kind of want, but there are more personal goals at this point. I mean, the beta was the gameplay was fun. Can't ask for more. However, though, I think that just being confident, just not knee jerking a little bit, I think is my big one that I had. And to be honest with you, I think they understood that it was going to be a reaction kind of like that. So I mean, we're kind of all just in like testing phase at this point, but I just want to be able to like have fun and enjoying my experience again. That's it. Like, that first week of the beta was special. That like second week wasn't really as much. If it could be like that first week all the time, you'd have no complaints out of me. But I'm a little bit stuck at the moment because now we're back to Overwatch 1. And I mean, we'll see this June announcement. I told them forever ago I'm on board to see what happens. I already committed to that. I'm still here. I'm still sticking it out. I suffered through that last like week of the beta with content and having content meetings and having people tell me that they're having a hard time putting stuff together because it's a little bit dry. And that's okay. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It was a beta that was technical beta. That was what they were working on. But let's continue to see stuff happen. Let's continue to see things improve. And I also want to continue to feel like we're heard. I don't want that to go away.
100%. Freedo.
Ooh. So I feel like I have the expected baseline of what it needs to be, and then a whole bunch of hopes and dreams beyond that, where I'm like, gee, I hope that it's more than this. But the minimum I think we can expect is the new mode, some new maps, at least one new hero, hopefully a support. And I'm a bit concerned because a lot of the issues that we pointed out as problems in this call, like not having a ranked mode, it's like, if my logic of limited betas and time frames and all that is the case, and there's going to be gaps between it, it's like, do they have even if they do put one in for this next one, it's going to go down in weeks or whatever with another break. Like I'm now having a bit of a hangover of the realization that like Overwatch 2.0 PvP isn't really going to be done for a bit longer than I felt like I realized. And so I don't know what the most important things are. My guess would be the changing the mainstream opinion is probably what they need to do the most, which is to say this feels like a new game. And so I'm more optimistic if there is a path for them to take the PvE section of this game concurrently with the PvP and kind of show and take the general gamer player base through a similar multi-beta approach and like a timeline for you to track the development of it, because I think that would lure more people into both sides of the game a bit more, to make it feel more substantial, to appreciate what we've got. But yeah, I'm a little bit pessimistic, but I think that's what they wanted and I think that's the whole point, to bring it full circle, of the 50-80 rule. I think that's why you do it. I think because then you set expectations low so that your follow-up is, knocks it out the park. So, but if there's multiple betas, then I'm like, how many times can you keep doing that? It's like, well, eventually the haymaker's got to come, right? You only get jabbed so many times. Like you gotta finish this. If we want to get knocked out, we got to full swing. And I'm worried it isn't now. I hope it is. I hope that announcement is like, this feels more close to Overwatch 2.0 in whatever way. That's what I would like to see. I want to be impressed. I want to be like, wow, there's multiple systems and features and content in this than I expected. There's much more, like very substantial. I don't want to be like, oh, I don't want to get back on this call next time and be like, no, guys, you understand, based on the limitations of what we can expect within a reasonable time frame. Like I only do that so many times. Okay, like eventually I'll start being a maniac too. Like I felt okay with that with beta 1. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, and that's funny because I've kind of swung the other way. You're pessimistic. I'm actually growing more to the optimism side because, like everyone else, when I saw that post, I also felt like a little bit of a heart drop moment. It's like June 16th. Oh, that's a full month away before they even announce what they're doing. So that means that's like at least like 4 or 5 weeks before we even get Overwatch 2 again. And at first I was like, man, that kind of sucks. But again, the more I think about it, the more it just makes sense to me. And maybe this is copium, hopium And again, maybe we'll watch this episode of the podcast back, and I'll look back at this clip, and I'll be like, man, I was smoking that shit hard. I was smoking the hopium hard. But it makes sense that it has to be more than what this was. This was the first step. And maybe Blizzard will regret giving us the crawl, walk, run publicly, because now it's like crawl, walk, run, here it comes. But it has to be more than just this 3 times, right? It can't just be, here's one hero and some new stuff 3 times. I think they were scared of giving us Overwatch 2 for the longest time, because they were there were so many reasons to be tentative, to be, a toe in the water. 5v5, the new UI, the sound changes, all these things that they were like, are people even going to like this as a baseline? Forget about our grand plans for how PvE will unfold, for the model, the business model. Were people even going to like this as a baseline? So they gave us a little first dangle. I think it has to be more now. And that's why I'm actually optimistic that this next beta is going to be more than just, we added 1 more hero and 2 more new maps, guys. What do you think now? I think it's got to be something substantial. I think it's, well, I think it's got to be substantial. It's got to be substantial. It's got to be, and that's what, maybe my mind is reading what I want to read into these words, but that's what I read when I read the next phase of Overwatch 2 testing. I think it means something's coming, and that's what I'm hoping. That's the thought I'm going to leave it on. So, guys, anything else to add before we peace out?
I think it's the way that we solved this was very weird. Is a quick note on that. It's like it felt like the gameplay struggled for so long, but then like the gameplay was good. So like I think if you look at big picture, I like to say I am a little optimistic that they did get the gameplay fixed and just lacked the format. So like we solved the biggest problem. Now let's just put it all together, bake the cake.
Yeah, and that's one thing that shouldn't be forgotten. The devs, again, we've almost taken so much for granted. The devs did an amazing job. Overwatch 2 5v5 feels great. It's everything we ever asked for. It's everything we ever said we wanted. This is why we were so happy on the last podcast, right? We were like, it's great, it feels great. So that's now, I think, a granted. We just need that train to keep going, right? We don't want the momentum to stop every few seconds. Oh, another stop. We just want the non-stop ride straight to the destination now, and we won't get that yet. But I'm hoping for something substantial. So thank you very much, guys, for giving me your time. I hope that when we next speak, it will be a happy moment, a joyous occasion when something good is coming our way. But until then, peace out and have a good rest of your day. Chat, we'll be right back on this stream, but go check these guys out. As always, show them some love and give them a lot of our gratitude for these great discussions. Peace.
Thank you, SVB.
See you later. Thanks for having us.
Later.
That was a lot longer than I thought it was. I'm not gonna lie. That kind of was a lot of effort. That being said, though, I'm not gonna delay it too much longer. I want to go get food and stuff and chill. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the thoughts. I guess not only myself but others. Some of them conflict, some of them don't. But I mean, we only have a month until we find out, hopefully, something big. I hope it's not just a month until we find out, oh, hey, next beta will be this time. I hope it's something grander. And, I think that's what we need more than anything. This month of Overwatch 1 is going to be tough. And I'm probably going to do some variety. Because Overwatch viewership is way down again. I mean, even right now, 8.7K, dude, 8.7K. That is low. That is very low. So, that being said, I'm gonna call it for the night. I'm gonna send you guys to car queue. Thanks for hanging. Thanks for being here. I appreciate y'all as always. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.